March 1993. Michael Jordan had just won his third NBA championship. He was the most famous athlete in the world. His face sold shoes, soft drinks, and cereal boxes. Children everywhere wanted to be like Mike, but none of that mattered when he walked into the Wilmington Hilton Riverside that warm spring evening. Because Richard Brennan, the hotel manager, didn't see a champion. He didn't see a legend. He didn't see a man coming home to give back to his community. He saw skin color first. What happened next would be captured on video by a hidden camera. The footage would shock the nation. The confrontation would expose a truth America didn't want to face: that excellence doesn't protect you from racism. That fame doesn't make you immune to hatred. That you can be Michael Jordan and still be told you don't belong. This is the story of one painful night in a hotel lobby. But more than that, it's the story of what happened when that pain went public. When silence became voice. When humiliation became hope. When one man's courage sparked a movement for change. This is the story of how Michael Jordan learned that being the greatest basketball player in the world wasn't enough, and how he decided to be something more. The plane touched down in Wilmington just as the sun began to set. Michael Jordan pressed his forehead against the small window and smiled. Below him, the Cape Fear River snaked through the city like a silver ribbon. Somewhere down there was Gordon Road, where he grew up. Somewhere down there was Laney High School, where he learned to fly. "We're home, Marcus," Michael said softly. Marcus Webb looked up from his clipboard and grinned. Marcus had worked as Michael's assistant for 2 years now. He knew that voice. That was the voice Michael used when he talked about Wilmington, not Chicago, where he won 3 NBA championships, not even North Carolina, where he became a legend at UNC. Just Wilmington. Home. "Yes, sir," Marcus said. "And tomorrow, you're going to make a lot of kids very happy." Michael nodded. Tomorrow was the charity basketball camp at Laney High. He would teach kids the same moves he learned on that same court. He would tell them the same thing his coaches told him: work hard, stay humble, never give up. Some of those kids would come from Gordon Road just like he did. Some would have holes in their shoes just like he did. And maybe, just maybe, one of them would make it out. The thought made his chest tight with joy. It was March 18, 1993. Spring had arrived early in North Carolina. The air smelled like pine trees and new grass. Michael stepped off the plane wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low. He wanted to blend in, but that was impossible. At 6'6", with those famous hands and that walk, Michael Jordan could never truly hide. A few people at the airport recognized him. They whispered and pointed. A little boy tugged his mother's sleeve. Michael waved and kept walking. He was tired. The NBA season was brutal. 3 championships in 3 years meant 3 long seasons with barely any rest. His body ached. His knees hurt. But tomorrow, none of that would matter. Tomorrow, he would see the kids. Marcus had rented a car, a simple blue sedan, nothing fancy. They drove through downtown Wilmington as the streetlights flickered on. Michael looked out the window at the old buildings. Some things had changed. New shops, fresh paint, more cars, but some things stayed the same. The church on 3rd Street where his grandmother used to sing. The park where he played pickup games until dark. The barber shop where Mr. Henderson still cut hair and told stories. "You hungry?" Marcus asked. "Starving," Michael said. "But let's check in first. I need a shower." They pulled up to the Wilmington Hilton Riverside at 7:30. The hotel sat right on the water, a tall building with big glass windows. Inside, the lobby glowed warm and golden. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The floors were shiny marble. Business people in suits walked past, talking on their big cell phones. Tourists in shorts and sneakers studied maps. Behind the front desk, a young woman with red hair smiled at each guest. Michael pushed through the revolving door with Marcus right behind him. His duffel bag hung over one shoulder. He wore the same clothes from the plane. No jewelry, no fancy watch, just Michael coming home. The young woman at the desk looked up. Her name tag said Jennifer Hayes. Her eyes went wide. "Oh my goodness," she whispered. "Mr. Jordan." Michael smiled. "That's me. I have a reservation under Jordan." Jennifer's hands shook as she typed on the computer. "Yes, sir. We have you in a suite on the 10th floor. Welcome home, Mr. Jordan. My little brother loves you. He has posters of you all over his room." "Tell him I said thank you," Michael said. His voice was kind and warm. Jennifer printed the room keys and slid them across the counter. "You're all set. The elevators are right over there. If you need anything at all, just call the front desk." "I appreciate it," Michael said. He picked up his bag and turned toward the elevators. Marcus followed, carrying his own small suitcase. The lobby was busy but not crowded. A family with 2 small children waited for the elevator. An older couple sat on a leather couch, reading newspapers. Everything felt calm. Everything felt normal. Michael pressed the elevator button and waited. He thought about tomorrow. He would wake up early, eat a good breakfast, and head to Laney High by 8. The camp started at 9. 200 kids had signed up. 200 kids who wanted to learn basketball from Michael Jordan. The thought made him smile again. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. "Excuse me, sir." The voice was cold and sharp. Michael turned around. A man stood 3 feet away, arms crossed over his chest. He was maybe 50 years old, with thin brown hair combed over a bald spot. He wore a dark suit and a striped tie. His face was hard like stone. His eyes were narrow and unfriendly. A name tag on his jacket read, "Richard Brennan, manager." "Yes," Michael said. "I need to speak with you," Brennan said. His voice cut through the warm lobby like a knife through butter. Michael glanced at Marcus, confused. "Is there a problem with my room?" Brennan stepped closer. His eyes traveled up and down, looking at Michael's jeans, his t-shirt, his old sneakers. The look lasted too long. It was the kind of look that made your skin crawl. The kind of look that said, "You don't belong here." "I need to verify that you're actually a guest at this hotel," Brennan said slowly. The words hung in the air. The family by the elevator stopped talking. The older couple looked up from their newspapers. Jennifer Hayes froze behind the desk, her smile disappearing. The whole lobby seemed to hold its breath. Michael's smile faded. Something cold crept into his chest. He knew this feeling. He had felt it before many times, in stores where security followed him. In restaurants where hosts said they were fully booked, then seated the next white family who walked in. In 1,000 small moments that cut like paper, quick, sharp, and invisible to everyone else. "I just checked in," Michael said calmly. "Jennifer has my information." Marcus stepped forward, holding up a folder. "We have the confirmation right here. Everything was arranged last week." Brennan didn't even glance at the folder. He kept his eyes locked on Michael. "Anyone can print a piece of paper," Brennan said. "I need to make sure you can actually afford to stay here. This is a very expensive hotel." The cold in Michael's chest turned to ice. Marcus's voice rose. "Do you know who this is? This is Michael Jordan. He plays for the Chicago Bulls. He just won his 3rd championship." Brennan's expression didn't change. "I don't follow basketball," he said. "And I don't care what anyone claims to be. I'm calling security, just to be safe." Michael stood perfectly still, his jaw tightened. His hands, those famous hands that held 3 championship trophies, curled into fists at his sides. But his voice stayed calm. His father's voice echoed in his head. "Don't let them see you break, son. Don't ever let them see you break." "Call whoever you need to call," Michael said quietly. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. The family with the children rushed inside, not looking back. They didn't want to be part of this. No one ever wanted to be part of this. Brennan pulled a radio from his belt. "Security to the front desk," he said into the speaker. "We have a situation." Jennifer Hayes finally found her voice. "Mr. Brennan, I checked him in myself. His reservation is right here in the system." Brennan silenced her with a look. "I'll handle this, Jennifer." More people in the lobby were watching now. Some whispered to each other. Some looked away, embarrassed. An older black couple by the window watched with sad, knowing eyes. They had seen this movie before. They knew how it ended. And somewhere in the back of the lobby, hidden partly behind a tall marble column, someone lifted a video camera to their shoulder. The red recording light blinked on. No one noticed. No one except Michael Jordan, who caught a glimpse of movement in his peripheral vision. He turned his head slightly and saw the lens pointing at him. Saw the person behind it standing in the shadows. Who was filming, and why? Richard Brennan's radio crackled. A voice answered, "Security on the way." Michael felt Marcus tense beside him. His assistant's breathing had changed, gotten faster and harder. Marcus was angry. Michael could feel it radiating off him like heat from a stove, but Michael stayed calm. He had practice at this. Years and years of practice. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Mr. Jordan is exhausted. He flew here to help the community, to work with kids, and you're treating him like a criminal." Brennan's thin lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I treat everyone the same, rich or poor, black or white. If someone looks suspicious, I ask questions. That's my job." The words black or white hung in the air like smoke. Michael's grandmother used to say that some white folks would tell you they didn't see color right before they showed you exactly how much they saw it. Brennan was one of those people. He saw color just fine. He saw it so clearly that it was the only thing he saw. "What makes me look suspicious?" Michael asked. His voice was steady, but inside his heart pounded against his ribs. Brennan's eyes traveled over Michael again. The old jeans, the plain white t-shirt, the baseball cap, the duffel bag that had seen better days. "You don't look like you belong in a place like this," Brennan said simply. There it was, the truth wrapped in careful words. Jennifer Hayes made a small noise behind the desk like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Her face had gone pale. She looked at Michael, then at Brennan, then down at her computer screen. She typed something, then stopped, started again, then stopped. Her hands were shaking. "Mr. Brennan," she said softly, "I really think there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Jordan's reservation is confirmed. He paid in advance. Everything is in order." Brennan turned to face her. His voice dropped low, cold as winter. "Are you questioning my judgment, Jennifer?" Jennifer's mouth opened, then closed. She looked down at her keyboard and said nothing. Michael watched this happen. Watched fear silence this young woman who had been so kind just 5 minutes ago. He knew what Brennan was doing. The threat was clear: speak up and lose your job. Stay quiet and keep your paycheck. It was an old game played 1,000,000 times in 1,000,000 places. The elevator dinged again. 2 men in security uniforms stepped out. One was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair and broad shoulders. The other was older, with gray at his temples and a tired look in his eyes. They walked toward the front desk with their hands on their belts where their radios and flashlights hung. "What's the problem, Mr. Brennan?" the younger guard asked. Brennan pointed at Michael. "This man claims to be a hotel guest, but I have concerns. I need you to verify his identity and his ability to pay for the room." The older security guard's eyes widened. He recognized Michael immediately. "Sir, that's Michael Jordan." Brennan's jaw tightened. "So everyone keeps telling me, but anyone can claim to be someone famous. I need to see identification. I need proof." Michael reached slowly for his back pocket. He moved carefully, deliberately. He had learned long ago that sudden movements made nervous people do stupid things. He pulled out his wallet, a simple black leather bifold worn soft from years, in his pocket. Inside was his driver's license, his credit cards, his NBA Players Union card, a photo of his parents. He slid out his license and held it up. "Michael Jeffrey Jordan," he said quietly. "Born February 17, 1963. 6'6", 216 pounds. The young security guard took the license. He looked at it, looked at Michael, looked at the license again. "It's him," he said to Brennan. "It's really him, sir." Brennan snatched the license from the guard's hand. He studied it like he was looking for a forgery. His eyes scanned every detail: the photo, the signature, the hologram that proved it was real. He took his time, making everyone wait, making Michael stand there and prove his right to exist in this space. The lobby had gone completely silent now. At least a dozen people were watching. Some pretended to read their phones or their newspapers, but their eyes kept drifting back to the scene unfolding at the front desk. A businessman in an expensive suit stood frozen by the gift shop, his mouth slightly open. Two women in tennis clothes whispered to each other by the restaurant entrance. And in the back, behind the marble column, the person with the video camera kept filming. The red light stayed on. The lens stayed focused on Michael's face. Marcus pulled the folder from under his arm. "Here's the confirmation email. Here's the credit card we used to reserve the room. Here's the phone number for your corporate office if you want to call them. We can clear this up in 30 seconds. Brennan ignored him. He was still looking at the driver's license, his face getting redder. He wasn't embarrassed. No, this was anger. Anger at being challenged. Anger at having to back down. Anger that everyone in this lobby was watching him make a fool of himself. But he couldn't deny what the license proved. This was Michael Jordan. This was a man who had just signed a $4 million deal with Nike. A man who appeared in commercials during every sports broadcast in America. A man whose face was on cereal boxes and billboards from coast to coast. Brennan shoved the license back at Michael. "Fine, but I still need to verify the reservation with corporate. There have been credit card scams lately. We can't be too careful." "Credit card scams," Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with disbelief. "That's what you're going with now?" "That's right," Brennan said. He turned to Jennifer. "Call the corporate office. Get Patricia Cole on the line." Jennifer nodded quickly and picked up the phone. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons. She had to dial twice before she got it right. Michael put his license back in his wallet. He looked at the two security guards. The older one wouldn't meet his eyes. He stared at the floor, his face burning with shame. The younger one looked confused, like he couldn't understand why this was happening. In the back of the lobby, the elderly black couple Michael had noticed earlier stood up. The woman was small and thin, with silver hair pulled into a bun. She wore a blue dress and carried a large purse. The man beside her was tall, with dark skin and white eyebrows. They walked slowly toward the front desk. The woman stopped a few feet away from Michael. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much, lived too long, witnessed too many moments just like this one. "My grandson has your poster on his wall," she said softly. "You're his hero." Michael's throat went tight. He managed a small smile. "What's his name?" "Marcus," she said. "Marcus Washington Jr. He's 10 years old. He wants to play basketball just like you." Michael nodded. "Tell him to keep practicing. Tell him to never give up." The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just nodded and walked back to her husband. They sat down again, but they didn't leave. They stayed to watch, to witness, because that's what you did. You stayed. You bore witness to the pain even when you couldn't stop it. Jennifer hung up the phone. "I'm on hold," she told Brennan. "They're transferring me to Ms. Cole's office." "Good," Brennan said. He turned back to Michael. His arms were still crossed. His face was still hard. "This will just take a few minutes. I'm sure you understand. We have policies here. We have standards." Standards, the word hit like a slap. Marcus stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "You want to talk about standards? Let's talk about how you're treating a guest who's done nothing wrong. Let's talk about how you assumed." "Marcus," Michael said quietly, just one word, just his name, but it was enough. Marcus stopped talking, but his jaw was still tight with rage. The businessman by the gift shop finally moved. He walked toward the front desk, his expensive leather shoes clicking on the marble floor. He was maybe 40 years old, with neat brown hair and a navy suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. "Excuse me," the businessman said. "I'm Thomas Mitchell. I'm from Chicago. I've been a Bulls fan for 20 years. He looked at Brennan. "That's Michael Jordan. I've watched him win 3 championships. I've watched him score 69 points in a single game, and I'm watching you humiliate him for no reason." Brennan's face got even redder. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns everyone in this lobby," Thomas Mitchell said. His voice was firm but not loud. "What you're doing is wrong and you know it." Other people started to murmur. The 2 women in tennis clothes nodded. The businessman's words had broken the spell of silence. People were starting to take sides, but some people still said nothing. Some people looked away. An older white man in a polo shirt walked quickly to the elevator, his eyes on the floor. He didn't want to be part of this. He didn't want to have to choose a side. It was easier to just leave, to pretend he hadn't seen anything. Jennifer's voice cut through the tension. "Ms. Cole's office says she's in a meeting. They're trying to get her." Brennan nodded. "We'll wait." "For how long?" Marcus asked. "How long are you going to make a stand here?" "As long as it takes," Brennan said. The words were simple, but the message was clear. "I have the power here. I decide when this ends. You will stand here and wait because I say so." Michael felt something crack inside his chest. Not break, just crack, like ice on a frozen lake when the temperature starts to change. He thought about his father, James Jordan, who worked 2 jobs to feed the family, who came home tired every night but never complained, who faced men like Richard Brennan 100 times and always held his head high. "You want to know how I can afford this room?" Michael asked. His voice was soft but carried across the silent lobby. "I'll tell you. My father worked at General Electric for 30 years. He fixed machines and came home with grease under his fingernails. My mother worked at the bank. They saved every penny they could. They taught me that hard work matters, that dignity matters, that no matter how much money I make or how famous I become, I should treat people with respect." He paused. "I wish someone had taught you the same thing." The lobby was so quiet you could hear the fountain by the window, the soft splash of water on stone. Brennan's mouth opened, then closed. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Not shame, not regret, something darker, something uglier. He leaned forward and under his breath, just loud enough for Michael and Marcus to hear, he muttered 2 words. 2 words that have cut down black men and women for centuries. 2 words designed to reduce a human being to nothing. Michael heard them clearly. Marcus heard them too. The older security guard heard them and his face went pale. Thomas Mitchell, standing close by, heard them and his eyes went wide with shock. And in the back of the lobby, the person with the video camera heard them. The camera caught everything. Marcus lunged forward. His hand reached for Brennan's collar. Michael grabbed his arm and held him back, but just barely. The younger security guard jumped between them, his hands up. "What did you say?" Marcus shouted, "What did you just call him?" The lobby erupted. Thomas Mitchell's voice rose above the others. "Did he just say what I think he said?" The 2 women in tennis clothes gasped. One of them covered her mouth with her hand. Mrs. Washington stood up again, her purse clutched tight. Her husband put his arm around her shoulders. Their faces were carved from stone, ancient and weathered by 1,000 storms just like this one. Jennifer Hayes stood frozen behind the desk, her hand still on the phone. Tears ran down her cheeks. And Richard Brennan stood in the center of it all, his face red, his eyes cold, and no apology anywhere in sight. The person with the video camera stepped out from behind the marble column just slightly, just enough to get a better angle. The lens zoomed in on Brennan's face, on Marcus's rage, on Michael's hand, still gripping Marcus's arm, holding him back from doing something that couldn't be undone. The red recording light blinked steadily. Who was filming? Why were they just watching, just recording, and not helping? And why, when Michael glanced back at that camera, did something about the person holding it seem strangely, impossibly familiar? Michael's hand was still locked around Marcus's arm. He could feel his assistant shaking with rage, every muscle tight and ready to explode. But Michael held firm. He had learned this lesson long ago. Violence would only make things worse. Violence would make him the villain in a story where he was the victim. "Marcus, no," Michael said quietly. "Not like this." "Did you hear what he called you?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Did you hear it?" "I heard it," Michael said. "Everyone heard it." The younger security guard looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. His face had gone from confused to horrified. He knew what he'd heard. He knew this had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The older security guard finally found his voice. "Mr. Brennan, I think you should step away from the desk. Right now." But Brennan didn't move. He stood there, chest puffed out, chin raised. No shame, no regret, just cold, hard defiance. "I was doing my job," Brennan said, "protecting this hotel from—" "From what?" Thomas Mitchell cut him off. "From paying customers, from one of the most famous athletes in the world, or from something else?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Michael's mind was spinning, falling backward through time. This wasn't the first time. God, it wasn't even the 10th time. This moment was just the latest chapter in a book that started before he was born and would probably continue long after he died. He was 12 years old again, standing in front of Mott's convenience store on Market Street in Wilmington. Summer of 1975. The air was thick and hot, the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer like water. Michael had ridden his bike there with his friend Lyra. They had $2 between them, enough for candy and a cold Coke. The store owner, a white man named Mr. Peterson, watched them from the moment they walked through the door, not the casual watching of a shopkeeper, the hard watching of someone who expected trouble. His eyes followed Michael down every aisle. When Michael reached for a candy bar, Mr. Peterson moved closer. "You gonna pay for that, boy?" Mr. Peterson had asked. Michael had looked up, confused. "Yes, sir, that's why I'm here." "I've had trouble with your kind before," Mr. Peterson said. The words were casual, like he was talking about the weather. "Sticky fingers, things disappearing, you understand." Young Michael hadn't understood, not really. He and Lyra had their money in their pockets. They weren't stealing. They weren't doing anything wrong, but Mr. Peterson's eyes said different. His eyes said, "You're guilty until proven innocent. You're suspicious because of your skin." Leroy had pulled Michael's arm. "Let's just go." But Michael had stood his ground, just like his father taught him. He bought the candy bar and the Coke. He counted out the exact change and placed it on the counter. Mr. Peterson had checked every coin, like Michael might have shaved them down, made them fake somehow. When they left, Mr. Peterson stood in the doorway and watched them ride away. Michael remembered his hands shaking on the bike handlebars, remembered the burn of tears he refused to let fall. Remembered getting home and finding his mother, Dolores, in the kitchen making dinner. "Mama," he had said, "why do some people treat us different?" Dolores Jordan had stopped cutting vegetables. She had wiped her hands on her apron and sat down at the kitchen table. She looked at her son with eyes full of love and sadness. "Because some people are afraid," she had said. "Afraid of what they don't know, afraid of change, afraid that if we rise up, they'll fall down." "But we're not trying to hurt anyone," Michael had said. "I know, baby, but they don't see it that way. They see the color of your skin first. They see the history they want to forget. They see their own fear reflected back at them." Young Michael had cried then, not loud but quiet tears that ran down his cheeks. His mother had pulled him close. "Listen to me, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. You are going to face this again and again, but you can't let it break you. You can't let it make you small. You stand tall. You work twice as hard as everyone else. You make them see you as a man, not a color. And when they still refuse to see it, she had paused. You keep your dignity. Because they can take a lot of things from you, but they can't take that unless you let them. The memory shifted. Different year, same lesson. He was 15 years old, autumn of 1977, Laney High School gymnasium. Coach Clifton Herring posted the varsity basketball team roster on the wall outside his office. Michael had stood in the crowd of boys, all of them pushing forward to see if their names were on the list. Michael's name wasn't there. Cut from the varsity team. He was good enough. He knew he was good enough. But someone else got chosen instead. Someone taller. Someone whose father knew the coach. Someone white. Michael had gone home that day and cried in his room. Real crying, the kind that comes from deep in your chest. His older brother Larry had found him. "They're stupid," Larry had said. "You're better than half those guys." "Then why didn't I make it?" Michael had asked. Larry didn't have an answer. Their father, James Jordan, had come home from work that evening. He still wore his General Electric uniform, blue shirt with his name stitched on the pocket. He was tired. Michael could see it in the way he moved, slow and careful, like his bones hurt. But when James heard what happened, he sat down with his son. "Michael," his father had said, "life isn't fair. You're going to learn that lesson over and over. Sometimes you don't make the team because you're not good enough. Sometimes you don't make it because someone decided before you walked in that you didn't belong. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know," Michael had said. "Yes, you do," James said. "You're going to work harder than everyone else. You're going to practice until your hands bleed. You're going to make them regret overlooking you, not with anger, not with violence, with excellence. You make them eat their words by being so good they can't ignore you." Michael had done exactly that. He practiced every day, made the team the next year, became a star, got a scholarship to North Carolina, won a national championship, got drafted by the Bulls, won Rookie of the Year, won MVP, won 3 championships, and here he was standing in a hotel lobby still having to prove he belonged. All that work, all that excellence, all those trophies and awards and magazine covers. And Richard Brennan looked at him and saw nothing but skin color. Saw nothing but someone to be feared, to be controlled, to be put in his place. The phone rang behind the desk. Jennifer grabbed it like a lifeline. Yes, this is the Wilmington Hilton," she listened. "Yes, Ms. Cole, thank you for calling back." She paused. "We have a situation here at the front desk. Mr. Brennan asked me to verify a guest's reservation," and she stopped, listened, her eyes widened. "Yes, ma'am, Michael Jordan, the basketball player. Yes, he's standing right here." She held the phone toward Brennan. "Ms. Cole wants to speak with you." Brennan snatched the phone. "Patricia, we have a security concern here. I was just following protocol." He stopped, listened. His face changed, going from red to purple. "I understand that, but..." Another pause. "Yes, but you weren't here. You didn't see." Longer pause. "Fine. Yes, I understand." He slammed the phone down so hard that Jennifer jumped. "Your reservation is confirmed," Brennan said through clenched teeth. "You're cleared to go to your room." "That's it," Marcus said. "That's all you have to say after what you called him, after what you did." Brennan's eyes were ice. "I was doing my job. If you have a complaint, take it up with corporate." The older security guard stepped forward. "Mr. Brennan, I think we need to file an incident report about what was said." "There's nothing to report," Brennan snapped. "Now everyone get back to work." He turned and walked away, not toward his office, toward the back hallway, away from the lobby, away from the eyes watching him. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Michael stood very still. His chest felt tight. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up. He had held it together, kept his calm, done everything his parents taught him. But the cost of that control was hitting him all at once. Thomas Mitchell approached carefully. "Mr. Jordan, I'm so sorry." I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry more people didn't speak up." "It's not your fault," Michael said. His voice sounded far away even to himself. "I know, but—" Thomas trailed off. What else was there to say? Mrs. Washington came over too, her husband beside her. She reached out and touched Michael's arm, gentle as a butterfly. "You handled that with grace," she said. "Your parents raised you right." Michael looked down at this small woman with silver hair and sad eyes. "Does it ever get easier?" Mrs. Washington smiled, but there was no joy in it. "No, baby, it doesn't. I'm 73 years old and it still cuts just as deep. But we survive. We always survive." Her husband nodded. "My grandfather was in Wilmington during the massacre of 1898. He saw things that would break most men, but he survived, had children, built a life. We're still here, and we'll still be here long after men like Richard Brennan are dust." Michael wanted to take comfort in those words, but he couldn't. Not yet, the wound was too fresh. Jennifer Hayes had tears streaming down her face now. She wasn't even trying to hide them anymore. "Mr. Jordan," she said, her voice shaking, "I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I should have said more. I was scared of losing my job." "I know," Michael said. "I understand." "No," Jennifer said firmly. "That's not an excuse. I knew it was wrong. I knew what he was doing, and I just stood here." She took a deep breath. "I quit, right now. I'm done working for a man like that." She took off her name tag and set it on the desk. Then she grabbed her purse from under the counter and walked toward the door. She stopped next to Michael. "I hope you know that not everyone here thinks like him," she said. "I know," Michael said. "Thank you." Jennifer nodded and left. The lobby was still quiet, still tense. The younger security guard shifted his weight, uncomfortable. The older guard put a hand on Michael's shoulder. "I'll make sure that incident report gets filed," he said. What he said wasn't right. What he did wasn't right. "Will it matter?" Michael asked. The guard hesitated. "I don't know, but I'll try." It was the most honest answer anyone had given him all night. Marcus finally released the tension in his shoulders. He looked at Michael with concern. "You okay?" "No," Michael said honestly, "but I will be." From the back of the lobby, the person with the video camera finally lowered it. The red light blinked off. Michael turned to look to see who had been filming this whole painful scene. But the person was already moving, slipping through a side door that led to the hotel's restaurant. Michael caught just a glimpse: dark hair, medium height, jeans, and a black t-shirt. And something about the way they moved, quick and purposeful, tugged at his memory. Who was that? And why did something about them feel familiar, like a dream he couldn't quite remember? Michael stared at the door where the camera person had disappeared. His mind turned over that glimpse like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Dark hair, quick movements, something familiar. But what? "MJ, we should go up to the room," Marcus said softly. "You need to rest." Michael nodded, but he didn't move. His feet felt glued to the marble floor. Around them, the lobby was starting to breathe again. People whispered. Some walked away quickly, like they were afraid of catching what just happened like a disease. Others lingered, stealing glances at him. The elevator dinged. A family stepped out. The father wore cargo shorts and a Chicago Bulls t-shirt. Two kids walked beside him, a boy about 8 years old and a girl maybe 6. The boy saw Michael first. His mouth dropped open. Dad, that's Michael Jordan." The father looked up. His eyes went wide. He grabbed his son's hand and started walking over, then stopped. He had seen something in Michael's face, something that said, "Not now, please not now," but the little boy was already running. He stopped 3 feet away, bouncing on his toes with excitement. "Are you really Michael Jordan?" the boy asked. Michael looked down at this child with bright eyes and a huge smile. A child who didn't know what had just happened, who didn't see color or hate or history, who just saw his hero. Michael forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy, I'm really him." I knew it. I told my sister it was you, but she didn't believe me. The boy turned and shouted across the lobby. Emma, I was right. It's really him. The little girl, shy and uncertain, peeked out from behind her father's leg. She had braids with pink beads at the ends. She wore a pink dress with flowers on it. The father finally approached, hand extended. Mr. Jordan, I'm Thomas Mitchell. I'm sorry to bother you. I know you've had a difficult evening. Thomas, the businessman who had spoken up, who had defended him when others stayed silent. Michael shook his hand. Thomas's grip was firm, his palm slightly sweaty, nervous. Thank you, Michael said, for speaking up. You didn't have to do that. Thomas's face reddened. Yes, I did. What that man did was wrong. What he said was. He glanced at his children and lowered his voice. Unforgivable. Can I have your autograph? The little boy asked. He held up a bull's pennant he'd pulled from his backpack. Please, I'm your biggest fan. Michael took the pennant. What's your name? Thomas Mitchell Jr., but everyone calls me TJ. Well, TJ, you got a pen. TJ's face fell. No, I didn't think I'd need one. I didn't know you'd be here. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a Sharpie. Here you go. Michael signed the pennant in big, looping letters. To TJ, keep chasing your dreams. Michael Jordan, number 23. TJ looked at the signature like it was made of gold. This is the best day of my life. Michael's chest tightened. Here was this kid, so happy, so innocent. And 20 feet away, Richard Brennan had just called Michael a name designed to strip away his humanity. The contrast was almost too much to bear. Mr. Jordan, Thomas said carefully, I want you to know something. I grew up in Chicago, born and raised. I've been watching you play since you joined the Bulls. My whole family has. We watch every game. He paused. But what I saw tonight, that wasn't about basketball. That was about something much bigger. And I want you to know that I see it. I see what happened, and I won't forget it. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Michael nodded. Thank you, he said again. Thomas's wife had come over now, holding little Emma's hand. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and dark blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. I'm Sarah, she said. I'm so sorry for what you went through. If there's anything we can do. There isn't, Michael said gently, but I appreciate the offer. TJ was still staring at his autograph. Dad, can we go to Mr. Jordan's basketball camp tomorrow? Please, please. Thomas looked at Michael. We heard about the camp at Laney High School. Is it still happening? 9 o'clock sharp, Michael said. 200 kids signed up. You're welcome to come. TJ jumped up and down. Yes, thank you, Mr. Jordan. The family said goodbye and headed toward the restaurant. Michael watched them go. TJ kept looking back at his autograph, then at Michael, then at the autograph again, like he couldn't believe it was real. Mrs. Washington was still sitting with her husband by the window. She caught Michael's eye and nodded slowly, a nod that said, I see you. I know your pain. You're not alone. Michael nodded back. The older security guard approached. Mr. Jordan, I want to apologize again. What Mr. Brennan did. What's your name? Michael asked. Robert Hayes, the guard said. I've worked here for 12 years. Hayes, any relation to Jennifer? Robert's face softened. She's my daughter, and I'm proud of her for walking out. She did the right thing. She did, Michael agreed. I should have done more, Robert said. I should have stepped in sooner, but he trailed off, searching for words. I've worked for men like Richard Brennan my whole life, and I've learned that sometimes speaking up costs you everything. I have a mortgage, I have bills, I have a wife who's sick and needs medicine, and so he stopped. I'm making excuses. There's no excuse for standing by while that happened. Michael looked at this man, probably in his late 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. A man who worked nights to keep his lights on. A man who knew the cost of speaking up because he'd probably paid it before. "I understand," Michael said. "I'm not mad at you." "Maybe you should be," Robert said quietly. The younger guard, who'd been standing awkwardly nearby, finally spoke. "I'm Danny Porter. I just started here last month." He looked down at his shoes. "I've never seen anything like that before. I didn't know what to do." "Now you know," Michael said. "Next time you'll do better." Danny nodded, grateful for the grace he didn't deserve. Marcus touched Michael's elbow. "We really should go up. You have a big day tomorrow." Michael nodded. He was exhausted, not just physically tired, but soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying weight that shouldn't be yours to carry. They walked to the elevator. Michael pressed the button. As they waited, he looked back across the lobby one more time. More people were watching now. A young couple by the entrance, an older man reading a newspaper or pretending to. 3 women in business suits having drinks at the bar. How many of them had seen what happened? How many had heard Richard Brennan's slur? And how many had walked away without saying a word? The elevator arrived. The doors opened. Michael and Marcus stepped inside. "Hold the elevator." A voice called out. An older black couple hurried across the lobby. Mr. and Mrs. Washington. They moved slowly, Mr. Washington using a cane but with determination. Michael held the door. They stepped inside, breathing heavy from the rush. "Thank you, young man," Mr. Washington said. "What floor?" Michael asked. 6, Mrs. Washington said. Then she turned to face Michael directly. "I need to tell you something." The elevator doors closed. They began to rise. "My name is Dorothy Washington," she said. "My husband is Eugene. We've lived in Wilmington our whole lives. 73 years for me, 76 for him." "Nice to meet you," Michael said. "We were here in this lobby tonight because we're celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary," Dorothy continued. 50 years married. We saved up for months to afford one night in this fancy hotel." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed strong. "And instead of celebrating, we had to watch a good man be humiliated for no reason other than the color of his skin." Eugene put his arm around his wife. "We've seen a lot in our years. We've lived through Jim Crow. We lived through the civil rights movement. We thought things were getting better." He paused. "Some things are better, but some things," he shook his head, "some things never change." The elevator passed the 4th floor, 5th floor. "My grandson, Marcus Jr., is 10 years old," Dorothy said. "He loves you. He has every poster, every trading card. He practices your moves in our driveway. He dreams of being just like you." She reached out and took Michael's hand. Her skin was soft and papery like old flowers. "But what happened tonight scared me. Because I realized that no matter how successful my grandson becomes, no matter how hard he works or how good he is, there will always be men like Richard Brennan. Men who see his skin before they see his soul." The elevator reached the 6th floor. The doors opened. Dorothy squeezed Michael's hand one more time. "Don't let this break you. We need you. Those kids at the camp tomorrow, they need you. Show them that grace is stronger than hate, that dignity is stronger than cruelty." Eugene nodded. "My grandfather survived the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. White men killed dozens of black people, burned down the newspaper, destroyed businesses, stole an entire city." His voice grew thick. "My grandfather saw bodies in the street. He was just a boy, but he survived. And he taught his children to survive, and they taught me. And I taught my children, and now I'm teaching Marcus Jr." He looked at Michael. "Survival is resistance. Your success is resistance. Those kids you're going to teach tomorrow, that's resistance." The elevator doors started to close. Dorothy stopped them with her hand. "One more thing," she said. "Someone was filming. I saw them. I don't know who they were, but they filmed the whole thing. That means there's proof. That means people will have to see what we saw, what you lived through." The doors closed. Michael and Marcus continued up to the 10th floor. Marcus let out a long breath. Those people have seen too much pain. Yeah, Michael said, but they're still standing, still fighting. That means something. The elevator reached 10. They stepped out into a carpeted hallway. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Everything was clean and quiet and expensive, so different from the chaos downstairs. Michael found his room. He slid the key card in. The lock clicked green. Inside, the suite was beautiful. Big windows overlooked the Cape Fear River. The lights of Wilmington sparkled like stars. A king-size bed with crisp white sheets. A couch and coffee table. A desk with hotel stationery. Marcus set down his bag. I'm right next door if you need anything. Thanks, Marcus. MJ, Marcus hesitated. What he called you, what he did, we can't let that go. We have to. I know, Michael said, but not tonight. Tonight I just need to breathe. Marcus nodded and left. Michael stood alone in the silent room. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there was Gordon Road, where he grew up. Somewhere was Laney High School, where he learned to fly. Somewhere were people who loved him and people who hated him, often for the same reason. His reflection stared back at him from the dark glass. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, 6'6", three-time NBA champion, Nike spokesman, Gatorade pitchman. One of the most recognizable faces in the world, and still just a black man in America. His phone rang. The hotel phone on the nightstand. Michael picked it up. Hello. Michael, baby, is that you? His mother's voice, warm and familiar and exactly what he needed. Hi, Mama. I just heard what happened at the hotel. Robert Hayes called me. Jennifer is his daughter. She used to babysit for the neighbors. She told him everything. Dolores Jordan's voice was tight with controlled anger. Are you okay? Michael's throat closed up. He couldn't speak. Baby, his mother said, talk to me. I'm tired, Mama, Michael finally said. I'm so tired of this. I know you are, baby, Dolores said softly through the phone. I know. Michael sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress was soft, too soft. Everything in this room was expensive and comfortable, but it couldn't protect him from what had happened downstairs. I did everything right, Mama, he said. I was polite. I showed my ID. I stayed calm, and it didn't matter. None of it mattered. It mattered, Dolores said firmly. You kept your dignity. That always matters. But he still, Michael's voice broke. He still said it, like I was nothing. Like all my success, all my work, all my championships mean nothing because of my skin. Dolores was quiet for a moment. Michael could hear her breathing, steady and strong. When you were little, she finally said, maybe 5 years old, you came home from the park crying. You asked me why the white kids wouldn't let you play on the swings. You said they told you the swings were only for them. Michael remembered. The memory was fuzzy, like looking through dirty glass, but it was there. I told you something then that I need you to remember now, Dolores continued. I said that some people's hearts are small, too small to hold love for everyone, too small to see past the surface. But your heart doesn't have to be small just because theirs is. You can choose to be bigger. What if I don't want to be bigger? Michael asked. What if I'm tired of being bigger? What if I just want to be angry? Then be angry, Dolores said simply. Be angry at the injustice. Be angry at the hate. But don't let that anger make you small. Don't let it steal your purpose. Michael looked out the window at the dark river below. I'm supposed to teach 200 kids tomorrow. I'm supposed to inspire them. How do I do that when I feel like this? You show them the truth, Dolores said. You show them that pain is real, but so is hope. That racism exists, but so does resilience. You teach them basketball, yes, but you also teach them how to stand tall when the world tries to knock them down. Michael closed his eyes. His mother's words settled over him like a blanket. "Your father wants to talk to you," Dolores said. There was a rustling sound. Then his father's deep voice came through the line. "Michael." Just his name. But the way James Jordan said it carried everything: pride, love, understanding, pain. "Hey, Pop." "I heard what happened," James said. "I wish I could say I'm surprised, but we both know better." "Yeah," Michael said. "You remember when you were 15, James asked. "When you got cut from the varsity team?" "I remember. You came home crying, said it wasn't fair, said you were good enough." "I was good enough," Michael said. "I know, and I told you to use that pain, turn it into fuel, make them regret overlooking you." James paused. "You did that. You worked harder than anyone. You made that team the next year. Then you became a star. Then you went to Carolina. Then the Bulls, then 3 championships." "But it still hurts, Pop," Michael said. "Even with all that success, it still hurts when someone treats me like I'm nothing." "Of course it hurts," James said. "You're human, but here's what you need to understand. Men like Richard Brennan, they're afraid. They see your success and it terrifies them. Because if you can rise that high, what does that say about them? What does that say about all their excuses? So they try to cut you down. They try to remind you of your place. But you know what? What? You don't have a place anymore. You broke free. You're Michael Jordan, and no amount of hate can take that away unless you let it." Michael felt tears on his cheeks. He wiped them away quickly, even though no one could see him. "I love you, Pop." "I love you too, son. Now get some rest. Those kids are counting on you tomorrow." They said goodbye. Michael hung up the phone and sat in the quiet room. He thought about tomorrow, about Laney High School, about the gymnasium where he'd spent countless hours shooting baskets until his arms ached. The same court where Coach Herring had cut him from varsity. The same court where he'd proven everyone wrong. 200 kids would be there. Kids from Gordon Road and neighborhoods like it. Kids who had holes in their shoes and dreams in their hearts. Kids who looked like him, who faced the same world he faced, who needed to know that success was possible, but they also needed to know the truth. That success didn't make you immune to hatred. That reaching the top didn't mean the climb was over. That being Michael Jordan meant wearing a target on your back every single day. There was a knock on the door. Michael stood up and looked through the peephole. Marcus stood in the hallway, holding 2 bags of food. "I ordered room service," Marcus said when Michael opened the door. "Figured you might be hungry." They sat at the small table by the window and ate cheeseburgers and fries, simple food that tasted better than it should have. "The phones are ringing," Marcus said between bites. "The story is already spreading. Local news called, ESPN called, even Sports Illustrated." Michael put down his burger. How did they find out so fast? "Someone talked. Maybe Jennifer Hayes, maybe one of the guests, maybe," Marcus hesitated, "maybe whoever was filming. The camera person, the one who disappeared through the side door, the one who felt familiar somehow." "Did anyone see who it was?" Michael asked. "No one I talked to, but whoever they were, they got everything on tape. The whole confrontation, everything Brennan said and did." Michael thought about that, about his humiliation being captured on video, about the world seeing him standing there being questioned, being insulted, being reduced to nothing but his skin color. Part of him was angry about the invasion of privacy, but another part of him understood. Without proof, it was his word against Brennan's. Without video, people could pretend it didn't happen, could say he was exaggerating, could claim he was playing the race card. But with video, the truth was undeniable. "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. "About the media, about the story." "I don't know yet," Michael said. "I need to think." Marcus nodded and stood up. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be hard enough without you running on empty." After Marcus left, Michael took a shower. The hot water helped ease the tension in his muscles, but not the weight in his chest. He dried off and put on a Bulls t-shirt and basketball shorts, his standard sleep uniform. He tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't stop spinning. He thought about TJ Mitchell, the little boy in the lobby, about how excited he'd been, how pure his joy was. TJ didn't care about race or history or politics. He just loved basketball and wanted to meet his hero. But TJ's father, Thomas Mitchell, had seen something different, had seen injustice and spoken up, had tried to use his voice, his privilege, his power to defend someone who needed defending. How many people like Thomas Mitchell were out there? How many would speak up? And how many would stay silent, uncomfortable, but unwilling to risk anything for what was right? Michael thought about Dorothy and Eugene Washington, 50 years married, 70+ years alive, a lifetime of seeing the same patterns repeat, the same hatred wearing different faces, the same struggle for dignity and respect that never seemed to end. Dorothy's grandson, Marcus Jr., was 10 years old. He had posters of Michael on his wall. He practiced fadeaway jumpers in his driveway. He dreamed big dreams. But what happened when Marcus Jr. grew up? When he went to college? When he got his first job? When he tried to check into a hotel or shop in a nice store or drive through the wrong neighborhood? Would he face the same battles? Would he have to prove his worth over and over again? Would people see him as a person first or a color first? The questions kept Michael awake until past midnight. At 12:30, someone slid something under his door. Michael heard the soft scraping sound. He got out of bed and walked over. A white envelope lay on the carpet. His name was written on the front in neat handwriting. He picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. The image showed a press badge clipped to a black shirt. The badge had a photo ID and a name printed clearly across the top: David Brennan, freelance documentary filmmaker, California Press Association. Michael's hand started to shake. Brennan, the same last name as Richard Brennan. The camera person wasn't a stranger. They were family. Richard Brennan's family had filmed the entire confrontation. But why? To protect Richard, to cover up his actions, or something else? Michael flipped the photo over. On the back, someone had written a message in the same neat handwriting. "I'm sorry I didn't stop it. I'm sorry I just filmed, but the world needs to see the truth. Tomorrow morning I'm sending copies to NBC, ABC, and CBS. You deserve better than silence. We all do. DB." Michael read the message 3 times. David Brennan had filmed his own father's racism, had documented it, had chosen truth over family loyalty. Michael didn't know what to feel. Gratitude, confusion, anger that David hadn't stepped in to help. He looked at the press badge photo again. David Brennan was young, maybe late 20s. He had dark hair, intense eyes, and a serious expression. Something about him looked haunted, like he carried ghosts. Michael sat back down on the bed, still holding the photograph. By tomorrow morning, the video would be on national news. Millions of people would see what happened, would see Richard Brennan's hate, would see Michael's grace under pressure, would see proof that racism wasn't some distant problem from the past, but a living, breathing reality in 1993. The question was, what would Michael do about it? He could stay silent, focus on the basketball camp, let the video speak for itself and move on with his life. Or he could speak up, use his platform, say the things that needed to be said, even if it cost him endorsement deals and made some people uncomfortable. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Show them that pain is real, but so is hope. His father's words, you don't have a place anymore, you broke free. Dorothy Washington's words, don't let this break you, we need you. Michael set the photograph on the nightstand and turned off the light. Tomorrow, he would go to Laney High School. Tomorrow, he would teach 200 kids how to shoot, how to dribble, how to play defense. And tomorrow, he would also teach them something more important: how to stand tall when the world tries to knock you down, how to keep your dignity when others try to strip it away, how to turn pain into purpose. Michael finally fell asleep just after 1 in the morning. His dreams were restless, filled with fragments of memories. His father's tired smile after a long shift, his mother's strong hands, Dorothy Washington's knowing eyes, T.J. Mitchell's pure joy, Richard Brennan's cold hatred, and through it all, a red recording light blinking steadily in the darkness, watching, documenting, preserving the truth for a world that desperately needed to see it. Michael woke up at 6 in the morning. The sun was just starting to rise over the Cape Fear River, painting the water orange and pink. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the memories came flooding back. The lobby, Richard Brennan, the slur, the camera. He sat up and rubbed his face. His body ached from tension, not from basketball. This was a different kind of tired. The photograph on the nightstand caught his eye. David Brennan's press badge stared back at him. By now, the video was probably already in the hands of news producers. By tonight, the whole country might know what happened. Michael stood and stretched. His knees popped. His back cracked. At 30 years old, he was still young, but the NBA had a way of aging you fast. 3 championships meant 3 brutal playoff runs. His body kept score of every game, every practice, every collision. He needed to move, needed to clear his head. Michael changed into running clothes and slipped out of his room. The hallway was empty and quiet. He took the stairs instead of the elevator, jogging down 10 flights until he reached the lobby. The lobby was different at dawn, peaceful. A young man in a hotel uniform pushed a vacuum across the carpet. An older woman arranged fresh flowers on the front desk. The marble floors gleamed in the early light. Jennifer Hayes wasn't there, of course. She'd quit, walked away from her job because she couldn't stand by and watch injustice. Michael wondered where she was now. If she regretted her choice, if she'd find another job easily. He pushed through the revolving door and stepped outside. The morning air was cool and fresh. Wilmington was just waking up. A few cars drove past. A man walked his dog. Somewhere nearby, birds sang their morning songs. Michael started running, not fast, just a steady jog to loosen his muscles and quiet his mind. He ran along the river, watching the water flow past. The river didn't care about racism or fame or pain. It just flowed, constant and unstoppable. He ran for 30 minutes, then walked back to the hotel. By the time he returned to his room, he felt more centered, more ready to face the day. Marcus knocked on his door at 7:30. "Morning," Marcus said. He looked tired too, like he hadn't slept much. "I ordered breakfast. Should be here in 10 minutes." They sat in Michael's room and waited. Neither spoke much. What was there to say that hadn't already been said? The food arrived. Eggs, bacon, toast, orange juice. Michael ate slowly, not really tasting anything. His mind was already at Laney High School, already seeing the kids' faces. "You should know," Marcus said carefully, "the phone has been ringing since 6. Every major news outlet wants a statement. ESPN wants an interview. The hotel's corporate office called 4 times. What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet, waiting for you to decide." Michael pushed his eggs around his plate. "What do you think I should do?" Marcus set down his fork. "I think you should tell the truth, all of it. Not just what happened last night, but what it means, how it feels, why it matters." He paused. "You have a platform that most people don't have. You can make people listen, make them understand." "Or I could lose everything," Michael said quietly. "Nike might drop me. Gatorade might walk away. McDonald's might decide I'm too controversial." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "Or maybe they'll respect you more. Maybe America needs to hear this from you." Michael thought about his endorsement contracts. $4 million from Nike alone. Millions more from other companies. That money supported his family, secured their future, let him give back to his community. But what good was money if you had to stay silent about your pain? What good was success if you couldn't use it to create change? "Let's get through the camp first," Michael said. "Then I'll decide." They finished breakfast and packed up. Marcus loaded the car while Michael took one last look around the hotel room. The fancy suite, the expensive furniture, the beautiful view. None of it had protected him from hatred. They checked out at the front desk. A different clerk was working, a young man with acne and nervous hands. He recognized Michael immediately. "Mr. Jordan, sir, I'm so sorry about what happened last night. Mr. Brennan doesn't represent this hotel or our values." "Thank you," Michael said simply. The drive to Laney High School took 15 minutes. Michael knew these streets by heart, past the park where he'd played as a kid, past the church where his family went on Sundays, past the corner store where Mr. Peterson had watched him like a criminal all those years ago. Some things changed. Some things stayed the same. Laney High School looked exactly like he remembered. Red brick building, green lawn, the big sign out front that read "Home of the Buccaneers." Michael had been a Buccaneer once, had worn the uniform with pride, had dreamed of playing in the NBA while sitting in those classrooms. The parking lot was already filling up, parents dropping off excited kids, news vans with satellite dishes, local reporters setting up cameras. Marcus groaned. How did they find out so fast? "Small town," Michael said. "Word travels." They parked and walked toward the gymnasium. Kids spotted Michael immediately. They started shouting his name, running toward him. Parents called them back, but the excitement was electric. Michael smiled. This was why he came, for them. The gymnasium doors opened and Coach Clifton Herring stepped out. He was older now, hair mostly gray, but he still had that same stern expression Michael remembered. "Jordan," Coach Herring said, extending his hand. "Welcome home." They shook hands. Herring's grip was still strong. "Thank you for letting us use the gym, Coach," Michael said. "It's your gym too," Herring said. "Always will be." He lowered his voice. "I heard what happened at the hotel. I'm sorry. Wilmington should be better than that." "It's not just Wilmington," Michael said. "It's everywhere." Herring nodded slowly. "I know, but that doesn't make it right." They walked inside together. The gymnasium was exactly as Michael remembered. The same wooden floor, the same baskets, the same bleachers where he'd sat as a sophomore, cut from varsity, watching the team practice and vowing to prove everyone wrong. Kids were already filling the gym. They wore Bulls jerseys, UNC jerseys, just regular t-shirts and shorts. They carried basketballs and water bottles. Their eyes were wide with excitement. Michael saw TJ Mitchell near the front, sitting with his father Thomas and his sister Emma. TJ waved frantically when he spotted Michael. Near the back, Dorothy and Eugene Washington sat with a young boy who had to be Marcus Jr. The boy wore a Bulls jersey that was 2 sizes too big. His eyes locked onto Michael and never wavered. Local reporters lined the walls with cameras. Michael recognized Sarah Chen from the Wilmington paper. She'd always been fair in her coverage, honest but kind. Marcus set up a table with sign-in sheets and permission forms. Parents lined up to register their kids. Everyone wanted to shake Michael's hand, tell him how much he meant to them, how proud they were. A woman approached with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Jordan, my son watches you every night on TV. He practices your moves in our driveway until it's too dark to see. You're his hero." "What's his name?" Michael asked. Marcus Washington Jr." Michael looked past her to where the boy sat with Dorothy and Eugene. He caught the boy's eye and waved. Marcus Jr.'s face lit up like the sun. More families came. More kids signed in. The gym filled with energy and hope and joy. At 8:45, Sarah Chen approached Michael carefully. "Mr. Jordan, do you have a minute?" Michael nodded. They stepped into the hallway, away from the noise. "I heard what happened at the Hilton," Sarah said. "I'm working on a story. I wanted to give you a chance to comment." "Not today," Michael said. "Today is about these kids." "I understand, but Michael, this is important. What Richard Brennan did." "I know what he did," Michael interrupted gently. "I was there. But right now, I have 200 kids waiting to learn basketball. That's my priority." Sarah nodded. "Fair enough, but when you're ready to talk, I hope you'll call me. Wilmington needs to hear your voice." They went back inside. The gym was packed now. Kids sat in rows on the floor. Parents filled the bleachers. News cameras rolled. Michael stood at center court and looked out at all those faces. Young faces, mostly black and brown, looking at him with hope and trust and admiration. His chest felt tight. These kids didn't know about last night yet. Didn't know about Richard Brennan's hatred or David Brennan's camera. They just knew that Michael Jordan, their hero, was here to teach them basketball. But one kid knew. One kid had heard something. A little girl in the third row raised her hand. She was small, maybe 10 years old, with braids and big brown eyes. She wore a Chicago Bulls t-shirt and jeans. "Yes," Michael said, pointing to her. The girl stood up. Her voice was clear and brave. "Mr. Jordan, my mama told me something happened to you at the hotel yesterday. She said people were mean to you because you're black." The gym went silent. "Is that true?" Every eye in the room turned to Michael. Parents held their breath. Kids waited. Cameras zoomed in. This was the moment. The choice his mother had talked about. He could deflect, change the subject, keep things light and fun, or he could tell the truth. Michael looked at this brave little girl who'd asked the question everyone was thinking. "What's your name?" he asked. "Aisha Williams." "Well, Aisha," Michael said slowly, "yes, something did happen at the hotel, and yes, it happened because I'm black." The gym stayed silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. "But here's what I want you to understand," Michael continued. "What happened doesn't define me. It doesn't make me less than anyone else. And it doesn't mean I give up or stop trying or lose hope." He paused. "It just means I have to work harder, be stronger, keep pushing forward even when people try to hold me back." Aisha nodded seriously, taking in every word. "Can I ask you something?" Michael said. "Yes, sir." "Have you ever been treated badly because of your skin color?" Aisha looked down at her shoes. "Yes, sir, at school sometimes. Kids say mean things." "And how does that make you feel?" "Sad," Aisha said quietly, "and angry." "Me too," Michael said. "I feel sad and angry too, and that's okay. Those feelings are real and valid." He looked around the gym, making eye contact with as many kids as he could. "But I don't let those feelings stop me from being who I am, from chasing my dreams, from working hard and staying focused on what matters." More hands went up. Michael pointed to a boy in a UNC jersey. "Did the hotel people apologize?" the boy asked. "Some did, some didn't." Another hand, a girl with glasses. "Are you going to sue them?" "I don't know yet. I'm still deciding what to do." TJ Mitchell raised his hand. "My dad says what they did was wrong. He says we should all stand up against racism." "Your dad is right," Michael said. He looked at Thomas Mitchell in the bleachers. Thomas nodded, his face serious. Marcus Jr. stood up without raising his hand. His voice shook but stayed strong. "My grandma says you're a good man. She says you handled it with grace. What does that mean?" Dorothy Washington smiled, tears on her cheeks. Michael walked over to Marcus Jr. He knelt down so they were eye level. "Grace means keeping your dignity even when people try to take it away. It means responding to hate with strength, not more hate. It means being bigger than the small people who try to make you feel small." He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Can you do that?" Marcus Jr. nodded. "I'll try." "That's all any of us can do," Michael said. "Try our best." He stood back up and addressed the whole gym. "Here's what I want you to take away from today. Yes, racism is real. Yes, people will judge you unfairly sometimes. Yes, the world can be cruel and unfair. But you know what else is real? Your talent, your dreams, your worth as human beings. Don't ever let anyone convince you that you're less than you are." The gym erupted in applause, parents stood, kids cheered, even some of the reporters wiped their eyes. Michael felt something loosen in his chest. The weight wasn't gone, but it felt lighter somehow, shared among all these people who understood, who'd lived it too, who refused to let hatred win. "Now," Michael said with a genuine smile, "who's ready to learn some basketball?" The kids jumped up, shouting and laughing. The sadness lifted, replaced by pure joy. For the next 3 hours, Michael taught fadeaway jumpers and defensive slides in proper shooting form. He ran drills and played games and signed autographs. He high-fived kids and encouraged the shy ones and corrected form with patience. This was what mattered. This was why he'd come home. But in the back of his mind, he knew the other shoe was about to drop. Somewhere out there, David Brennan's video was making its way to news desks across America. By tonight, everything would change. The basketball camp ended at noon. Kids left sweaty and happy, clutching autographed basketballs and memories they'd carry forever. Parents thanked Michael over and over. Some hugged him. Some cried. Everyone understood that today had been about more than basketball. Michael was exhausted, not from the physical work, but from the emotional weight of it all. Every question from the kids had cut deep. Every story about discrimination had reopened wounds. But somehow, sharing that pain had made it easier to carry. Marcus packed up the equipment while Michael said his final goodbyes. Dorothy and Eugene Washington approached with Marcus Jr. between them. "Thank you," Dorothy said simply. "What you did today, talking to them honestly, that took courage." "They deserve the truth," Michael said. Marcus Jr. held out a piece of paper folded carefully. "I wrote you something." Michael unfolded it. In careful handwriting, the boy had written, "Dear Mr. Jordan, you are my hero not because you win games, but because you are strong when people are mean. My grandma says strength is not muscles, it is heart. You have the biggest heart. Thank you for coming home. Love, Marcus Washington Jr." Michael's vision blurred. He folded the paper carefully and put it in his pocket. "I'll keep this forever," he told Marcus Jr. The boy's smile could have lit up the whole gymnasium. Thomas Mitchell and his family were waiting near the door. TJ was talking a mile a minute about everything he'd learned. Emma was half asleep on her father's shoulder. "Mr. Jordan," Thomas said, "I know you've had a long morning, but I wanted to tell you something." "Go ahead." "I grew up in a white neighborhood, went to a white school, had mostly white friends. I thought I understood racism because I'd read about it in books." Thomas paused, choosing his words carefully. "But watching what happened to you last night, actually seeing it with my own eyes, I realized I didn't understand at all. Not really. And I'm ashamed it took me this long to see it." "Don't be ashamed," Michael said. "Just do better, teach your kids what you learned." Thomas nodded. "I will, I promise." He hesitated. "And if you decide to speak out about what happened, I'll back you up. I'll tell everyone what I saw, what I heard." "Thank you," Michael said. After the last family left, Michael and Marcus drove back to the hotel in silence. The radio was on low, playing soft jazz. Neither of them wanted to hear the news yet. Didn't want to know if the story had broken, but they couldn't avoid it forever. When they pulled into the hotel parking lot, 3 news vans were waiting. Reporters and camera operators stood by the entrance, ready to pounce. "Here we go," Marcus muttered. They parked and got out. Immediately, reporters rushed forward with microphones and cameras. "Mr. Jordan, is it true you were racially profiled at this hotel?" "Michael, do you have a comment about the incident with Richard Brennan? Will you be pressing charges? How do you feel about?" Michael held up his hand. The reporters fell silent. "I don't have a statement right now," he said calmly. "When I'm ready to talk, I'll let you know." "But Mr. Jordan." "That's all I have to say." He and Marcus pushed through the crowd and into the lobby. Security guards kept the reporters outside. The lobby looked the same as always, clean, expensive, quiet, but it felt different now, tainted, like a beautiful painting with a hidden stain. A new manager stood behind the front desk, a woman in her 40s with short black hair and kind eyes. She hurried over when she saw Michael. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Patricia Cole. We spoke on the phone last night." She looked genuinely distressed. "I'm so deeply sorry for what happened. Richard Brennan has been terminated. We're reviewing all our policies and procedures, and we'd like to offer you." "I don't want anything," Michael said, not rudely, just firmly. "I just want to get my things and leave." Patricia Cole nodded. "Of course, your belongings are being packed now, and we've refunded your payment in full." Michael and Marcus went up to the room. Hotel staff had indeed packed everything. His duffel bag sat by the door, zipped and ready. Michael looked around the suite one last time, the fancy furniture, the river view, the expensive art on the walls. Last night this room had felt like a prison. Now it just felt empty. His phone rang. The hotel phone, not his cell. Michael picked it up. "Hello." "Michael, it's Spike." Spike Lee, the filmmaker, the man who directed Michael's Nike commercials, the man who'd become a friend. "Hey, Spike." "I saw the video," Spike said without preamble. "It's all over the news. NBC ran it at noon. ABC is running it tonight. CNN won't stop playing it." Michael sat down heavily on the bed, so it was out. The whole world now knew what had happened in this lobby. "How bad is it?" Michael asked. "Bad for Brennan, good for you." Spike's voice was intense. "Michael, you handled that with more grace than most people could manage. You stood there and took it and never lost your cool. That video shows everything, the way he looked at you, the questions he asked. And at the end," Spike paused. "The audio isn't perfect, but you can hear him say it, clear as day, the N-word." Michael's stomach turned. "The whole country is talking about it," Spike continued. "And you need to talk too. You need to tell your side, give an interview, make a statement, something." "I don't know if I want to," Michael said honestly. "I know, but listen, this is bigger than you now. This is about every black person who's been treated like this. Every time someone followed us in a store. Every time someone clutched their purse when we got on an elevator. Every time someone assumed we were the help instead of the guest." Spike's voice rose with passion. "You have a platform, Michael. Use it. And if I lose my endorsements, then you lose them. But you gain something more important. You gain the respect of everyone who's been where you were. You become more than a basketball player. You become a voice for change." Michael rubbed his temples. A headache was building behind his eyes. "Let me think about it," he said. "Don't think too long. The news cycle moves fast. By next week, they'll be on to something else. If you're going to speak, speak now while people are listening." They said goodbye. Michael hung up and looked at Marcus. "Spike says the video is everywhere." Marcus nodded. "I figured. My phone has 67 messages. Your agent called, Nike called. Even David Stern's office called." David Stern, the NBA commissioner, if he was calling, this was serious. What did they want? "To offer support, to see how you're doing, to ask if you need anything." Marcus paused. "Nike wants to schedule a call. They want to discuss how to handle this publicly." Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course they do. They're worried I'm going to become controversial, bad for business." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "Or maybe they genuinely care." Michael's cell phone rang. He looked at the caller ID, his mother, Mama. "Michael, baby, turn on the TV. NBC, right now." Michael grabbed the remote and flicked on the television. Marcus moved closer to watch. NBC was running a special report. The screen showed the hotel lobby. Michael recognized it immediately. The marble floors, the chandeliers, the front desk where Jennifer Hayes had been so kind. Then the video started playing. Michael watched himself walk across the lobby with Marcus, watched Richard Brennan approach, watched the whole confrontation unfold from a stranger's point of view. The video quality was surprisingly good. David Brennan had known what he was doing. The camera captured everything: Brennan's hostile body language, his dismissive tone, his refusal to accept proof of Michael's reservation. Marcus's voice on the video: "Do you know who this is? This is Michael Jordan." Brennan's cold response: "I don't follow basketball." The reporter's voice narrated over the footage. The confrontation escalated when Brennan called for security, despite Jordan providing identification and confirmation of his reservation. The video showed Marcus lunging forward, showed Michael holding him back, showed Thomas Mitchell speaking up, showed the other guests watching, some uncomfortable, some silent. Then came the worst part. The audio was muffled, but the network had enhanced it. Brennan leaning close, his mouth moving. And then, clear as a bell, the slur. The ugly, hateful word that had been used to dehumanize black people for centuries. The reporter came back on screen, a serious black woman in her 40s. This incident raises important questions about discrimination in public spaces. Michael Jordan, one of the most successful athletes in the world, was treated as suspicious simply for checking into a hotel. What does this say about race in America in 1993? The broadcast cut to reactions from the public. People on the street interviewed outside the Wilmington Hilton. A young black man: "This happens all the time. We just usually don't have video proof." An older white woman: "I'm shocked. In this day and age, it's disgraceful." A white businessman: "Jordan should have just shown his ID and moved on. Why make such a big deal?" A black mother with 2 children: "I have to teach my sons how to behave when they're accused of something they didn't do. Teach them to stay calm, keep their hands visible, don't raise their voice. It's exhausting." The reporter came back on screen. Richard Brennan has been fired from the Wilmington Hilton. The hotel's corporate office released a statement calling his actions completely unacceptable and contrary to our values. But many are asking, is firing one man enough? What about the systemic issues that allow this kind of discrimination to persist? The broadcast showed footage from the basketball camp that morning. Michael talking to the kids. Aisha Williams asking her brave question. Michael's honest answer about what happened. Jordan addressed the incident this morning at a youth basketball camp in his hometown, the reporter said. His grace under pressure has been praised by civil rights leaders and public figures across the country, but Jordan himself has remained silent about what actions, if any, he plans to take. The screen showed Michael's face from the camp, serious and thoughtful as he talked to the children. "We reached out to Mr. Jordan for comment, but he has not yet responded. The question now is, will one of the world's most famous athletes use his platform to speak out against racism, or will he choose to stay silent and move on?" The report ended. A commercial came on for laundry detergent. Michael turned off the TV. "Mama," he said into the phone, "you still there?" "I'm here, baby." "What should I do?" Dolores Jordan was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and sure. "You do what you've always done. You stand up for what's right, not because it's easy, not because it's profitable, but because it's necessary." "I'm scared," Michael admitted. "Scared of losing everything I've worked for." "You won't lose everything. You might lose some things, but you'll gain something more valuable. You'll gain the knowledge that you used your voice when it mattered most." After the call, Michael sat in silence. Marcus waited, not pushing, just present. Finally, Michael stood up. "Call a press conference," he said. "Tomorrow morning, here at the hotel, I'm going to talk." Marcus smiled. "Good, what are you going to say?" "The truth," Michael said, "all of it." They checked out of the hotel and drove to a different one across town, a smaller place where Michael could have some privacy. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and planning. Nike called. Michael assured them he wasn't going to do anything crazy. He was just going to speak his truth. David Stern called. The commissioner offered the NBA's full support. His agent called. He was worried but supportive. His teammates called. Scottie Pippen, B.J. Armstrong, Horace Grant. All of them expressing solidarity. Magic Johnson called. He understood what Michael was going through. He'd faced his own public crisis when he announced he was HIV positive. "Be honest," Magic said. "People respect honesty." By evening, Michael was emotionally drained. He ordered room service and ate alone. Marcus had gone to make arrangements for tomorrow's press conference. Michael turned on the TV again. Every channel was covering the story. Cable news, sports networks, entertainment shows. Everyone had an opinion about what Michael should do. Some said he should sue. Some said he should let it go. Some said he was being too sensitive. Some said he wasn't being angry enough. Everyone had advice. But nobody really understood what it felt like to be him in this moment. To have your private pain become public entertainment. To have strangers debate whether your experience was valid. Around 9 o'clock, there was a knock on his door. Michael looked through the peephole. A young man stood in the hallway holding an envelope, dark hair, intense eyes, the same face from the press badge photo, David Brennan. Michael opened the door. "Mr. Jordan," David said. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying. "I'm David Brennan. I'm the one who filmed what happened. Can we talk?" Michael stood in the doorway looking at David Brennan. The young man's eyes were red-rimmed. His hands shook slightly as he held the envelope. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "How did you find me?" Michael asked. "I'm a journalist," David said. "Finding people is part of the job." He paused. "I understand if you don't want to talk to me. I'm a Brennan. That name probably makes you sick right now." Michael studied him for a long moment. David looked nothing like his father. Richard Brennan's face had been hard, cold, full of hatred. David's face showed pain, shame, and something else. Determination, maybe, or hope. "Come in," Michael said, stepping aside. David entered the small hotel room. He looked around nervously, like he expected someone to jump out at him. Michael closed the door. "Sit," Michael said, gesturing to the chair by the window. David sat on the edge of the seat, perched like a bird ready to fly away. Michael sat on the bed, keeping some distance between them. "Why are you here?" Michael asked. David set the envelope on the table. "To apologize, to explain, to..." He trailed off, searching for words. "To tell you the truth about who I am and why I filmed what happened." "Okay," Michael said, "I'm listening." David took a deep breath. "Richard Brennan is my father, but I haven't spoken to him in 6 years. Not since I was 22 years old and finally had the courage to walk away from his hate." Michael said nothing, just waited. "I grew up in Wilmington," David continued, "in a white neighborhood where people said terrible things about black people at dinner tables and church socials, where the N-word was as common as please and thank you." His voice cracked. "My father used that word my whole childhood, talked about black people like they were animals, like they were dangerous, like they were less than human." "And you believed him?" Michael asked. "When I was little, yes. I didn't know any better. But then I went to college. University of California, Berkeley. I got away from Wilmington and met people who weren't like my father. Black students, Latino students, Asian students. People who showed me that everything I'd been taught was a lie." David rubbed his face with his hands. "My junior year, I took a documentary film class. For my final project, I came back to Wilmington. I interviewed people about the 1898 massacre, about how white supremacists killed black people and stole the government, about how that violence shaped this city for generations." "I know that history," Michael said quietly. "My professor loved the film, said it was powerful, said I had a gift for showing truth through a camera lens." David looked up at Michael. So I became a documentary filmmaker. I moved to California, started making films about racism, about injustice, about the stories that don't get told. And your father disowned me, said I was a traitor to my race, said I'd been brainwashed by liberals. David's laugh was bitter. We didn't speak for years. Then last week my mother called, said she was sick, asked me to come home just for a few days to make peace before. He stopped. Before it might be too late. Michael felt a flicker of sympathy. He knew what it was like to love a parent, to want to honor them even when it was hard. I flew to Wilmington 3 days ago, David said. Stayed with my mother, avoided my father as much as possible. But Tuesday night, my mother begged me to have dinner with both of them, to try to rebuild the relationship. How did that go? Terribly. My father spent the whole meal talking about how the country was going downhill, how minorities were taking over, how white people needed to fight back. David's hands clenched into fists. I left before dessert, told my mother I couldn't do it, couldn't pretend everything was fine. He paused, gathering himself. Yesterday evening, I went to the Hilton to meet my mother for a drink. She likes that hotel bar, the fancy one with the view of the river. I got there early, so I was just sitting in the lobby waiting, and then you walked in. Michael remembered. The lobby, the golden light, Jennifer Hayes smiling behind the desk, everything normal until it wasn't. I recognized you immediately, David said. Michael Jordan, one of the most famous people in the world, and then my father appeared, and I saw the look on his face. That look I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. That look of disgust and suspicion and hatred. So you started filming, Michael said. Not right away. At first I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was just doing his job. But then he started asking those questions. Those loaded, insulting questions about whether you could afford the room, whether you were really a guest. And I knew exactly what he was doing. David's voice rose with emotion. I grabbed my camera from my bag. It's a small professional camera. I carry it everywhere. I moved behind that marble column where he couldn't see me, and I started recording. Why didn't you help me? Michael asked. The question came out sharper than he intended. Why did you just stand there filming while your father humiliated me? David flinched like he'd been slapped. Because I'm a coward, because I was afraid, because, he stopped, took a breath. Because I thought the video would be more powerful than my intervention. I thought if I had proof, undeniable proof, then people would have to see the truth. They couldn't dismiss it or explain it away. So you used my pain for your documentary. Michael's voice was cold now. No, David stood up, agitated. I mean, yes, I filmed it, but not for me, for you, for everyone who's ever been treated like that and had no proof, no one to believe them. He paced the small room. Do you know how many times I've heard white people say racism doesn't exist anymore, that black people are just too sensitive, that they're making it up? Michael knew. He'd heard it too, from reporters, from fans, from people who wanted to believe the world was fair when it wasn't. I filmed it because I wanted evidence, David said. I wanted my father caught on camera being exactly who he is. I wanted the world to see what I've known my whole life, that men like him still exist, that they're in positions of power, that they hurt people every single day. Did you think about asking my permission? Michael asked. David sat back down, deflated. No, I didn't, and that was wrong. I treated you like a subject in a film instead of a human being going through something traumatic. He looked at Michael with genuine remorse. I'm sorry, truly sorry. I should have helped you first and filmed second. Or not filmed at all. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. Michael thought about the video that was now playing on every news channel in America, thought about millions of people watching his humiliation, his pain, his moment of vulnerability, but he also thought about what Dorothy Washington had said, that there was proof now, that people would have to see the truth. "What happened after you left the lobby?" Michael asked. "I went straight to my car, copied the video file to 3 USB drives. Then I drove to FedEx and overnighted them to NBC, ABC, and CBS News divisions." David pulled a small camera from his jacket pocket. "This is the original. I want you to have it." He held out the camera. Michael took it, feeling the weight of it in his hands. "Why give it to me?" "Because it's yours, it's your story, your experience. I just happened to capture it." David met Michael's eyes. "You can do whatever you want with it, keep it, destroy it, use it. The choice should be yours." Michael set the camera on the nightstand next to the photo of David's press badge. "Does your father know it was you?" Michael asked. David nodded. "He figured it out this morning. When the news started running the footage, he recognized my camera work, the angles I use, the way I frame shots." His voice dropped. "He called me, said things I won't repeat. My mother called after. She was crying, said I've destroyed the family." "Do you regret it?" "Not for a second," David said firmly. "My father destroyed our family years ago with his hatred. I just exposed it, made it public." He paused. "The only thing I regret is not helping you in that moment, not standing beside you instead of behind a camera." Michael studied this young man who'd betrayed his father to reveal the truth. It couldn't have been easy. Family ties ran deep, even when they were wrapped around poison. "What happens now?" Michael asked. "With your family?" "I don't know. My mother is upset, but she'll forgive me eventually. She always does. My father," David shrugged, "he'll probably never speak to me again, which is fine. I don't want a relationship with a man like that." "And what do you want from me?" Michael asked. "Why come here? Why tell me all this?" David stood up slowly. "I wanted you to know who filmed it. I wanted you to understand why. And I wanted to tell you that if you decide to speak out tomorrow, I heard about the press conference. I'll be there to support you. I'll tell my story too, about growing up with racism, about learning to reject it, about why documentation matters." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Mr. Jordan, I know I can't undo what my father did. I can't take away your pain, but I can stand with you now. I can use my voice, my privilege, my platform, small as it is, to say that what happened was wrong, that racism is real, that we all have a responsibility to fight it." Michael stood and walked to the door. He opened it but didn't step aside yet. "David," he said, using the young man's first name for the first time. "What you did, filming instead of helping, I'm still angry about that. You treated me like a story instead of a person." "I know," David said, shame in his voice. "But," Michael continued, "what you did with the footage, sending it to the networks, exposing your father, choosing truth over family loyalty, that took courage. Different courage than I would have preferred, but courage nonetheless." David's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that. Tomorrow at the press conference, if you want to be there, you can. But this is my story to tell, not yours. You understand?" "Completely," David said. "I'll be there to answer questions if they ask, but I won't take the spotlight. This isn't about me." "Good," Michael said. He stepped aside, letting David pass. David walked into the hallway, then turned back. "Mr. Jordan, one more thing. My father isn't sorry, not at all. He thinks he did nothing wrong, thinks he was just doing his job. He'll probably never admit fault or show remorse." "I know," Michael said. "Men like him rarely do. But I'm sorry, for him, for me, for all of us who benefit from a system that treats you as less than." David's voice was thick with emotion. "And I promise to do better, to be better, to use whatever platform I have to tell the truth about racism in America." "That's all any of us can do," Michael said. "Try to be better." David nodded and walked away. Michael watched him go, this young man who'd chosen principle over family, truth over comfort, justice over loyalty. Michael closed the door and sat back down on the bed. He picked up David's camera and turned it over in his hands. Such a small device to hold such a painful truth. His phone rang. "Marcus." "How are you doing?" Marcus asked. "I'm okay. Someone just came to see me." "Who?" "David Brennan, the guy who filmed everything, Richard Brennan's son." Marcus was silent for a moment. What did he want? To apologize, to explain, to tell his side of the story. "Do you believe him?" Michael thought about David's tears, his shame, his determination to make things right. "Yeah," Michael said, "I do." "Good, because tomorrow is going to be intense. The whole world will be watching. Are you ready?" Michael looked at his reflection in the dark window, saw the face that had appeared on magazine covers and cereal boxes, the face that sold shoes and sports drinks, the face that kids like Marcus Jr. put on their walls, but also the face that Richard Brennan had looked at with such contempt, the face that reminded some people of everything they feared and hated. "I'm ready," Michael said. "Let's tell the truth." The press conference was scheduled for 10 o'clock Thursday morning. Michael woke at 6, showered, and put on a dark suit with a red tie. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Not because of the formal clothes, he wore suits all the time for interviews and appearances, but because of what he saw in his own eyes. Fear, determination, sadness, hope, all mixed together. Marcus arrived at 7:30 with coffee and bagels. Neither of them ate much. "The media room is packed," Marcus said. "Every major network, local news, sports reporters, even international press. Everyone wants to hear what you're going to say." Michael nodded. His hands were shaking slightly, so he sat on them. "I've been thinking about what to say all night," Michael admitted. "Part of me wants to be angry, to yell, to tell everyone exactly how much this hurt." "And the other part?" Marcus asked. "The other part remembers those kids at the camp, remembers Aisha's question, remembers Marcus Jr.'s note." Michael pulled the folded paper from his wallet and read it again. The words about strength and heart. "I want to be angry, but I also want to give people hope." "You can do both," Marcus said. "Anger and hope aren't opposites." At 9:30, they left for the hotel, the same Wilmington Hilton where everything had happened. Patricia Cole had offered the conference room for the press conference. She said it was the least the hotel could do. When they arrived, reporters were everywhere. Cameras lined the walls. Photographers jostled for position. The energy in the room was electric and hungry. Michael saw familiar faces. Sarah Chen from the Wilmington paper. Sports reporters he'd known for years. National news anchors he'd only seen on television. And in the back, standing alone, was David Brennan. He wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt. His camera hung around his neck, but he wasn't filming. He just stood there, watching, waiting. Patricia Cole approached Michael in the hallway before he entered. "Mr. Jordan, I want you to know that we've fired Richard Brennan. We've also begun mandatory diversity training for all staff. We're reviewing our policies on guest treatment and—" "Ms. Cole," Michael interrupted gently, "I appreciate what you're doing, but firing one man doesn't fix the problem. Training sessions don't fix the problem. The problem is bigger than your hotel." Patricia's face fell. "I know, but I don't know what else to do." "Keep trying," Michael said. "Keep pushing, keep asking hard questions. That's all any of us can do." At exactly 10 o'clock, Michael walked into the conference room. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions erupted from every direction. "Michael, over here." "Mr. Jordan, how do you feel about?" "Michael, will you sue the hotel?" Marcus stepped to the podium first. "Mr. Jordan will make a statement, then he'll take questions. Please hold all questions until he's finished speaking." The room quieted. Michael stepped up to the microphone. The lights were bright and hot on his face. He could barely see the people beyond the first few rows. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. his prepared statement. But when he unfolded it and looked at the words he'd written at 3 in the morning, they felt wrong, too careful, too safe. Michael folded the paper and put it away. "I'm going to speak from my heart," he said into the microphone, "not from notes." The room was completely silent now. 2 nights ago, I came home to Wilmington, the city where I grew up, where I learned to play basketball, where my family still lives. I came home to give back, to work with kids, to say thank you to the community that made me who I am. Michael's voice was steady, but his hands gripped the podium. "I checked into this hotel, the Wilmington Hilton, around 7:30 in the evening. I was tired. I was looking forward to rest. And then something happened that has happened to me many times before, something that happens to Black people every single day in America." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I was questioned about whether I could afford my room. I was asked invasive questions about my reservation. Security was called. I was treated like a criminal simply for existing in a space that someone decided I didn't belong in." A few reporters scribbled notes, most just listened, transfixed. Now some people might say, "Michael, you're rich, you're famous. Why does this matter? You can afford any hotel in the world. You can go anywhere you want." Michael shook his head. "But that's not the point. The point is that my money and my fame didn't protect me. Nothing protected me. Because the thing that made me suspicious wasn't my behavior or my appearance or anything I did. It was the color of my skin." His voice grew stronger, more passionate. "I've worked my whole life to be excellent, to be undeniable. I thought if I was good enough, if I won enough championships, if I made enough money, then maybe I'd be treated like everyone else. But I was wrong. Excellence doesn't protect you from racism. Success doesn't make you immune to discrimination. You can be Michael Jordan and still be told you don't belong." Reporters shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Some nodded in agreement. By now, most of you have seen the video. You've watched what happened. You've heard the words that were said to me. That slur. That ugly, hateful word that has been used to dehumanize Black people for centuries. Michael's jaw tightened. "I want to be clear about something. This isn't about one man. Richard Brennan didn't invent racism. He's not uniquely evil. He's a product of a system that teaches some people that they're better than others because of skin color. A system that gives some people power and others none. A system that has to change." He looked directly at the cameras. "I'm speaking today not just for myself, but for everyone who's been followed in a store, everyone who's been passed over for a job they were qualified for, everyone who's been pulled over for no reason, everyone who's been told they don't belong, everyone who's had to work twice as hard to get half as far." The room was absolutely still. "Yesterday, I held a basketball camp at Laney High School. 200 kids came, and a little girl named Aisha Williams asked me if it was true that I'd been treated badly because I'm Black. I could have lied. I could have said everything was fine, but I told her the truth because she deserved the truth." Michael's voice softened. "Those kids, Aisha, Marcus Jr., TJ Mitchell, all of them, they're going to face the same world I face. Maybe it will be better by the time they grow up. I hope so. But right now, today, they need to know that their experiences are real, that their pain is valid, that they're not imagining things when they feel different or excluded or judged." He took a breath. "So here's what I'm asking, not just of this hotel, but of everyone watching. Look at yourselves honestly. Look at your assumptions. Look at who you trust and who you suspect. Look at who gets the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't. And ask yourself, am I part of the problem or part of the solution?" A few reporters wiped their eyes. Michael saw Dorothy Washington in the crowd standing with Eugene. She was crying but smiling. "I'm not going to sue anyone. I'm not seeking revenge. What I want is change, real change. I want policies that protect people from discrimination. I want training that actually works, not just checking boxes. I want accountability when things go wrong. And I want people to care, really care, about treating everyone with dignity and respect. Michael looked around the room, making eye contact with as many people as he could. I'm Michael Jordan. I'm a basketball player. I'm a son, a brother, a friend. I'm a human being, and I deserve to be treated like one. Not because I'm famous, not because I'm successful, but because I'm human. That's all any of us are asking for, to be seen as human first. He stepped back from the microphone. The room exploded with questions. Michael, will this affect your endorsements? Mr. Jordan, what do you want to happen to Richard Brennan? Michael, are you worried about backlash? Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Jordan will take a few questions now. Michael pointed to Sarah Chen. Mr. Jordan, you mentioned you've experienced this before. Can you talk about that? Michael nodded. When I was 12, a store owner followed me around his shop, assuming I was going to steal. When I was 15, I was cut from the varsity basketball team even though I was good enough to play. Throughout my career, I've had people assume I'm an athlete when I walk into business meetings, not a businessman. It never stops. You just learn to deal with it. Another reporter. What do you say to people who think you're being too sensitive, that this wasn't about race? Michael's smile was sad. I'd say they haven't walked in my shoes. They haven't spent their whole life being judged by their skin before their character. And I'd ask them to watch the video again, really watch it, and ask themselves, would a white man in jeans and a t-shirt have been treated the same way? A white reporter in the third row stood up. Mr. Jordan, I'm from Chicago. I've covered your career for years, and I'll be honest, I didn't understand racism until I saw that video. I thought things were better. What can people like me do? Michael appreciated the honesty. Listen, really listen when black people tell you about their experiences. Don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. Just listen and believe us. Then use your voice. Speak up when you see injustice. Use your privilege to create change. That's what allies do. Thomas Mitchell raised his hand from the side of the room. Michael pointed to him. Mr. Jordan, my son and I were in that lobby. We saw everything. I spoke up, but I didn't do enough. What should I have done differently? You did more than most people, Michael said. You used your voice. That matters. But yes, you could have done more. You could have stood beside me physically, made it clear you wouldn't leave until this was resolved, called the police if needed. Sometimes being an ally means being willing to risk your own comfort. Thomas nodded, taking in the words. David Brennan raised his hand. Michael hesitated, then pointed to him. I'm David Brennan, he said, and the room erupted in whispers. Richard Brennan's son. I'm the one who filmed what happened. Mr. Jordan, do you think documentation like this video is important for fighting racism? Michael thought carefully before answering. Yes and no. Yes, because people need proof. They need to see it with their own eyes or they won't believe it. But no, because black people shouldn't have to record every moment of their lives to prove they're telling the truth. We should be believed without video evidence. David nodded and sat down. A reporter from ESPN stood. Michael, there are rumors that Nike and your other sponsors are concerned about you becoming too political. Are you worried about losing endorsements? Michael looked directly into the camera. If standing up for human dignity is too political, then maybe those companies aren't right for me. I hope they'll support me, but if they don't, I'll survive. Some things are more important than money. The room buzzed with that statement. Reporters frantically typed on their laptops. Patricia Cole stood up. Mr. Jordan, on behalf of the Wilmington Hilton, I want to publicly apologize. What happened here was wrong. We failed you. We're committed to doing better." "Thank you," Michael said. "I accept your apology. Now follow through with action." Marcus stepped forward. "Last question." A young black reporter in the back raised her hand. "Mr. Jordan, what do you want people to remember from this? What's the main message?" Michael thought about Aisha Williams, about Marcus Jr.'s note, about Dorothy Washington's tears, about T.J. Mitchell's joy, about all the kids who looked up to him. "I want people to remember that racism isn't ancient history. It's happening right now today in hotel lobbies and stores and schools and workplaces everywhere. And I want people to know that we all have a choice. We can ignore it or we can fight it. I'm choosing to fight. I hope you'll join me." The press conference ended. Michael stepped away from the podium as cameras flashed and reporters shouted final questions. Marcus guided him toward a side door. But before they left, Dorothy Washington approached. She hugged Michael tightly. "You did good, baby," she whispered. "You did real good." Eugene shook his hand. "My grandson watched this on TV. He's proud of you. We all are." Thomas Mitchell was there with TJ. The little boy held up a sign he'd made. "We stand with Michael Jordan." "Can I keep that?" Michael asked. TJ handed it over, beaming with pride. As Michael left the hotel, he felt lighter somehow. Not because the pain was gone, but because he'd used it for something meaningful. He'd told the truth. He'd stood up. He'd shown those kids that your voice matters, even when using it is scary. The story would continue to unfold. There would be more interviews, more discussions, more debates about race in America. Some people would praise him. Some would criticize him. Some would say he went too far. Some would say he didn't go far enough. But Michael had done what he came to do. He'd spoken his truth. And sometimes that's all you can do. Michael and Marcus drove away from the hotel in silence. The weight of what had just happened sat heavy in the car. Michael's phone buzzed constantly. Calls, texts, messages flooding in from all over the country. He turned it off and stared out the window at Wilmington passing by. "Where do you want to go?" Marcus asked. "Laney High," Michael said. "I want to see the court one more time before we leave." They drove through familiar streets, past houses Michael remembered from childhood, past the convenience store where Mr. Peterson had watched him so many years ago, past playgrounds where he'd practiced his shots until sunset. When they pulled into the Laney High parking lot, Michael was surprised to see cars there. Lots of cars. It was Thursday afternoon. School was in session, but something was happening in the gymnasium. They walked to the gym entrance. Through the windows, Michael could see people inside. Lots of people. He opened the door. The gymnasium was full, not packed like at the camp, but filled with maybe 100 people standing in small groups talking quietly. When Michael entered, everyone turned. Then someone started clapping, then another person, then another. Within seconds, the entire gymnasium erupted in applause. People stood and cheered. Some cried. Some raised their fists in solidarity. Michael stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed. Dorothy and Eugene Washington were there. Marcus Jr. stood between them, clapping hard, his face shining with pride. Aisha Williams was there with her mother. T.J. Mitchell waved from the bleachers, sitting with his whole family. Coach Herring stood at center court, nodding with approval, and at the front, holding a handmade banner, was Thomas Mitchell. The banner read, "The Wilmington Commitment, we stand for justice." Thomas walked over to Michael, still carrying the banner. "Mr. Jordan, we watched your press conference, all of us, and we decided we needed to do more than just feel bad about what happened. We needed to act." "What do you mean?" Michael asked. Thomas gestured around the gym. "After you spoke this morning, I started making calls to neighbors, to business owners, to church leaders, to anyone who would listen. I told them we needed to come together as a community. White people, black people, everyone. We needed to say clearly, what happened to you was wrong and we won't accept it anymore." He unrolled the banner fully. Underneath the title were signatures. Dozens and dozens of signatures. 217 people have signed so far, Thomas said. We're calling it the Wilmington Commitment. It's a pledge to fight racism in our city, to hold each other accountable, to create real change, not just talk about it. Michael looked at the names covering the banner. White names and black names, old people and young people, business owners and students, all of them promising to do better. Patricia Cole stepped forward from the crowd. Mr. Jordan, I want you to know that the hotel is doing more than just training. We're creating a scholarship fund. $5,000 a year for students from underserved communities in Wilmington. We're naming it after Jennifer Hayes. Jennifer? Michael asked. She stood up for what was right, Patricia said. She quit her job rather than be complicit in injustice. That deserves to be honored. A voice called out from the back, Mr. Jordan. Michael turned. Jennifer Hayes herself stood there looking nervous but determined. I wanted to thank you, Jennifer said as she walked closer. After I quit, I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. I have bills to pay. I have student loans. But this morning, 3 different businesses called me. They all saw the news. They all want to hire me. One of them is paying more than the hotel did. She smiled, tears in her eyes. You showed me that doing the right thing matters more than keeping quiet. That standing up costs something, but staying silent costs more. Michael hugged her. You're the brave one. You didn't have to quit. You chose to. More people came forward. A woman who owned a restaurant downtown promised to review her hiring practices. A man who managed a department store committed to training his security staff to treat all customers equally. A church pastor pledged to preach about racial justice every month. One by one, people stepped up and made promises. Real, concrete promises about what they would do differently. Sarah Chen, the reporter, stood up from the bleachers. Mr. Jordan, I've been covering Wilmington for 15 years. I've written about racism before, but people didn't want to listen. They said I was exaggerating, that things weren't that bad. She held up her notebook. But your story, what happened to you, it made people pay attention. It made white people in this city finally see what black people have been saying forever. That's powerful. Coach Herring walked over to Michael. The old coach's eyes were wet with tears. Michael, when I cut you from varsity all those years ago, I had my reasons. You were good, but you were small, still growing. I thought another year on JV would help you develop. He paused. But I wonder now if part of me believed you couldn't be that good. If I underestimated you because of something I didn't even realize I was thinking. Michael looked at his old coach with surprise. This was the first time Herring had ever acknowledged that the cut might have been wrong. Coach, you helped make me who I am. That cut motivated me to work harder than ever. Maybe, Herring said, but you shouldn't have had to work twice as hard just to be seen as equal. That's on me. That's on all of us. He looked around the gym. We have to do better for these kids coming up. They deserve better than what we gave you. Marcus Jr. approached shyly, holding a piece of paper. Mr. Jordan, I wrote something else. Can I read it? Of course, Michael said. The gym quieted down. Marcus Jr.'s voice was small but clear. My name is Marcus Washington Jr. I'm 10 years old. I love basketball. I love Michael Jordan. But now I know that being strong isn't just about sports. It's about standing up when things are wrong. It's about telling the truth even when it's scary. Mr. Jordan showed me that this week. He showed all of us. The boy looked up from his paper. My grandma says that every generation has to fight for freedom, that it's never finished, that we have to keep pushing, keep working, keep believing that things can get better. Mr. Jordan is fighting for us. And when I grow up, I'm going to fight too, for my kids, for everyone who comes after me. The gym erupted in applause again. Dorothy Washington cried openly now, holding her grandson close. David Brennan stood near the door. He'd been there the whole time, Michael realized, but staying back, staying quiet. Now he stepped forward hesitantly. The crowd noticed him. Some people whispered. Everyone knew who he was now. Richard Brennan's son, the man who filmed everything. "Can I say something?" David asked. Thomas Mitchell looked at Michael. Michael nodded. David walked to the center of the gym. He looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to disappear. "My name is David Brennan. My father is the man who said those terrible things to Mr. Jordan, who treated him with such disrespect and hatred." David's voice shook. "I grew up in this city, in a house where racism was normal, where that word Mr. Jordan mentioned, that slur, was used at the dinner table like it was nothing, where black people were talked about as threats, as problems, as less than human." People shifted uncomfortably. This was hard to hear. "I left Wilmington because I couldn't stand it anymore. I went to California and learned a different way of seeing the world. But this week I came back, and I saw that nothing had changed. My father was still the same man, still carrying the same hate." David looked at Michael. "When I filmed what happened, I made a choice: family or truth, loyalty or justice, and I chose truth. I chose justice, because some things are more important than blood." He turned to address the whole crowd. "I'm telling you this because I want you to know that change is possible. I was raised in racism and I rejected it. It wasn't easy. It cost me my family, but it was necessary. And if I can change, if I can unlearn what I was taught, then anyone can." David pulled out his camera. "I'm a documentary filmmaker. I make films about injustice, about racism, about the stories that don't get told. And I want to make a film about this, about what happened to Mr. Jordan, about how this community responded, about people like Thomas Mitchell and Jennifer Hayes and all of you who are signing that commitment." He looked around the room. "I want to call it The Lobby, not just about a hotel lobby, but about the space where we meet each other, where we decide how to treat each other, where we choose between hate and humanity. Will you help me tell that story?" People looked at each other. Then Thomas Mitchell raised his hand. "I'll participate. I'll tell my story about learning to see racism instead of ignoring it." Jennifer raised her hand. "Me too. I'll talk about choosing integrity over comfort." One by one, hands went up. Dorothy and Eugene, Aisha and her mother, Marcus Jr., Coach Herring, Sarah Chen, Patricia Cole, dozens of people volunteering to be part of the story. Michael watched this happen with wonder. 24 hours ago, he'd been standing in a hotel lobby being humiliated and degraded. Now a whole community was coming together to say, "Never again. Not here. Not to anyone." Mr. Jordan. A young man Michael didn't recognize approached. He was maybe 19, wearing a Laney High basketball jersey. "My name is Deshaun Miller. I'm a senior here. I play point guard." He looked nervous. "I wanted to say thank you, because what you did, speaking out, it gave me courage to do something too." "What's that?" Michael asked. "There's a teacher here who says racist stuff sometimes. Little things. Jokes that aren't really jokes. Comments about black students being naturally athletic but not smart. Stuff like that. And I've been scared to report it because what if nobody believes me? What if they say I'm being too sensitive?" Deshaun straightened his shoulders. "But after watching you today, I decided to talk to the principal. I told him what's been happening, and he listened, really listened. He said he'd investigate, that even if it makes people uncomfortable, we have to address it." Michael shook Deshaun's hand. "That took courage. I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of you too," Deshaun said. "You didn't have to speak out. You're Michael Jordan. You could have just ignored it and moved on, but you didn't. You used your voice for all of us." As the afternoon wore on, more stories emerged. More people shared their experiences with racism. More promises were made. More commitments to change. The Wilmington commitment grew longer and longer with signatures. Local businesses pledged to review their practices. The police chief showed up and promised implicit bias training for all officers. The school superintendent committed to curriculum changes that taught honest history about race in Wilmington. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough. One press conference and one community meeting couldn't undo centuries of racism, but it was a start, a real, tangible start. As the sun began to set, people started to leave. They hugged Michael, thanked him, promised to do better. Thomas Mitchell was the last to go. He rolled up the banner carefully. "We're going to keep adding names," he said, "and we're going to hold each other accountable. Check in every month. Make sure we're actually doing what we promised, not just signing a piece of paper and forgetting about it." "That's good," Michael said, "because talk is easy, action is hard." "I know," Thomas said, "but we're going to try for TJ, for Marcus Jr., for Aisha, for all the kids who deserve better than what we've given them." After everyone left, Michael stood alone on the court. The same court where he'd been cut from varsity, where he'd practiced until his hands bled, where he'd learned to fly. Marcus came over. "We should head to the airport. Flight leaves in 2 hours. "Give me 1 more minute," Michael said. He walked to the free throw line. Someone had left a basketball on the sideline. Michael picked it up, feeling the familiar texture of the leather. He dribbled once, twice, 3 times, then he shot. The ball arced through the air in a perfect rainbow and swished through the net. Michael smiled. Some things never changed. Some things you could always count on. He grabbed the ball and shot again. And again. 10 shots, all perfect. Then he set the ball down and walked off the court. "Okay," he said to Marcus. "I'm ready. Let's go home." The flight back to Chicago was quiet. Michael sat by the window, watching Wilmington disappear below the clouds. He felt exhausted but somehow peaceful. He'd done what he needed to do, said what he needed to say. Marcus sat across the aisle, making phone calls and checking messages. The press conference had created a media storm. Every major outlet wanted follow-up interviews. Magazines wanted cover stories. Talk shows wanted appearances. "What do you want me to tell them?" Marcus asked, putting his phone down. "Tell them I said what I had to say. I'm focusing on basketball now." Marcus nodded and went back to his calls. Michael closed his eyes and tried to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept replaying the past 3 days. The lobby, the confrontation, the camp, the press conference, the community gathering. So much had happened in such a short time. When they landed in Chicago, a car was waiting. Michael's apartment was in a high-rise building downtown with views of Lake Michigan. Home, finally. The doorman greeted him warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Jordan. Good to see you." "Thanks, Pete. Good to be back." Michael rode the elevator up to the 32nd floor. His apartment was quiet and dark. He turned on the lights and dropped his bag by the door. Everything was exactly as he'd left it, clean, organized, empty. He walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Chicago, the city that had embraced him when he was drafted. The city where he'd won 3 championships. The city that felt more like home now than Wilmington did. His phone rang. He turned it back on during the drive from the airport. The caller ID showed his mother's number. "Hi, Mama." "Michael, baby, you made it home." "Just walked in the door." "How are you feeling?" Michael thought about that question. How was he feeling? "Tired," he said honestly, "but okay, better than I expected." "I watched the press conference," Dolores said. "You were magnificent. Your father and I were so proud. You spoke truth with grace. That's not easy to do." "I learned from the best," Michael said. They talked for a few more minutes, then said goodnight. Michael heated up some leftovers from the refrigerator and ate standing at the counter. He wasn't really hungry, just going through the motions. He was about to head to bed when someone knocked on his door. Michael looked through the peephole. A courier stood in the hallway holding an envelope. Michael opened the door. "Can I help you?" "Delivery for Michael Jordan. I need a signature." Michael signed the electronic pad. The courier handed him a thick manila envelope and left. Michael turned the envelope over in his hands. No return address, just his name written in block letters. He opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten on hotel stationery from the Wilmington Hilton. Michael's stomach dropped. He recognized the handwriting from the name tag he'd seen. Richard Brennan. Michael's first instinct was to throw it away unread. What could Brennan possibly have to say? But curiosity won. He sat down on his couch and unfolded the pages. The letter was dated yesterday, written the morning after the incident before Brennan was fired. "Mr. Jordan," it began, not dear, not even a simple greeting, just the bare minimum. Michael read on, and with each sentence his chest tightened with anger. "I am writing to explain my actions on the evening of March 18, 1993. You have made quite a scene about what happened, and I feel compelled to set the record straight. I was simply doing my job. As a hotel manager, it is my responsibility to verify that all guests are legitimate. We have had problems in the past with credit card fraud and people attempting to stay at our hotel without proper authorization. I was following standard protocol by asking you to verify your reservation. You are the one who made this into a racial incident. You are the one who chose to make a big deal out of routine questions. If you had simply cooperated without attitude, the whole thing would have been resolved in minutes. I don't care if you're Michael Jordan or the President of the United States. Everyone gets treated the same at my hotel. I ask questions of white guests too. You're not special just because you play basketball." Michael's hands were shaking now. He wanted to stop reading, but he continued. "The media is making me out to be some kind of racist, but that's not true. I have worked with black employees. I have served black guests. I judge people by their character and their behavior, not their skin color. The fact that you were black had nothing to do with my decision to verify your reservation. What I said at the end of our conversation, those words you claim I used, were said in a moment of frustration. You and your assistant were being difficult and aggressive. I felt threatened. Words came out that I didn't mean. But that doesn't make me a racist. It makes me human. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're angry. The real problem here is that people like you play the race card whenever things don't go your way. You cry racism instead of taking responsibility for your own behavior. You use your fame to make yourself the victim when you're really just someone who didn't like being asked reasonable questions. My son David has betrayed me by sending that video to the media. He has destroyed my career and my reputation because of his liberal brainwashing. He was raised better than this, but California changed him, turned him against his own family, against his own people. I hope you're happy with what you've done. You've cost me my job. You've turned the media against me. You've made me out to be a monster when I was just doing my job. But I want you to know that I'm not sorry for how I treated you. I did nothing wrong. And no amount of media attention or public pressure will make me apologize for something I didn't do. You may have won this battle, but you haven't changed anything. People like me, people who see things clearly, we're still here. We're still the majority, and we're not going to be silenced by political correctness or accusations of racism." Richard Brennan. Michael read the letter twice, then a third time. Each reading made him angrier but also sadder. Here it was, proof that some people would never change, never grow, never admit they were wrong. Brennan truly believed he'd done nothing wrong. He saw himself as the victim, saw Michael as the aggressor, saw his own son's moral courage as betrayal. The letter was everything that was wrong with racism in America. The denial, the defensiveness, the refusal to even consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, skin color had played a role in his decisions. Michael called Marcus. "I need you to come over, now." Marcus arrived 20 minutes later. Michael handed him the letter without a word. Marcus read it, his expression darkening with each paragraph. "This is," Marcus searched for words. "This is unbelievable. He's not sorry at all. He still thinks he did nothing wrong." "I know," Michael said. "We should release this to the media. Let people see how unrepentant he is. Let them see that firing him wasn't enough because he'll just take these attitudes somewhere else." Michael thought about that. Part of him wanted the world to see Brennan's letter, wanted everyone to understand that racism wasn't just actions but attitudes, that you could fire a man but not fix his heart. But another part of him was just tired of fighting, tired of explaining, tired of trying to convince people like Richard Brennan that black people were human. "No," Michael said finally, "we're not releasing it." "Why not?" Marcus looked frustrated. "Because it won't change anything. People who want to believe we're making up racism will just say Brennan is one bad apple. People who already understand will see the letter as confirmation of what they already know. And Brennan himself, he'll probably feel vindicated that we're giving him more attention." Michael walked to the window and looked out at the city. "The truth is, Marcus, I can't fix Richard Brennan. I can't make him see me as human if he's determined not to. And I'm tired of trying to convince people like him that I deserve basic respect." "So we just let him off the hook?" Marcus asked. "No, we focus our energy on people who want to change. People like Thomas Mitchell, who admitted he didn't understand and wants to learn. People like Jennifer Hayes, who risked her job to stand up for what's right. People like those kids at the camp who asked hard questions and listened to honest answers." Michael turned to face Marcus. "That's where hope lives. Not in changing the hearts of men like Richard Brennan, but in reaching the next generation before they become like him. In supporting the people who are trying to be better. In building systems that don't allow individual racism to cause so much harm." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right, but it's frustrating." "I know," Michael said. "Believe me, I know." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked, "What are you going to do with the letter?" Michael looked at the pages scattered on his coffee table. This letter that proved how deep hatred could run, how resistant to change some people were, how exhausting it was to fight against walls that refused to come down. "I'm going to keep it," Michael said, "as a reminder, not of hatred but of why the work matters, why we can't give up even when it feels hopeless, why we have to keep pushing forward even when people like Brennan push back." He gathered the pages and put them back in the envelope. "Every time I want to stay quiet, every time I think speaking up isn't worth it, I'll remember this letter. I'll remember that silence lets men like Brennan think they're right, and I'll find the strength to keep using my voice." Marcus stood up. "You're a better man than I am. I would have released that letter immediately." "Maybe," Michael said, "but being better isn't about revenge. It's about choosing the path that creates the most positive change. And right now, I think that path leads forward, not backward." After Marcus left, Michael sat alone with his thoughts. He pulled out Marcus Jr.'s note from his wallet and read it again. The words about strength and heart. Then he thought about Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist his mother had taught him about. Douglass had said that power concedes nothing without demand, that the struggle for freedom was constant and difficult. Michael understood that now in a way he hadn't before. The struggle wasn't just about changing laws or policies. It was about changing hearts and minds. And some hearts, like Richard Brennan's, might never change. But that didn't mean the work was pointless. It just meant you had to be strategic about where you put your energy. Michael went to his desk and pulled out a notebook. He started writing down ideas, ways to use his platform for change. Not just speaking out when incidents happen, but building lasting programs. A scholarship fund for kids from underserved communities. Not just in Wilmington, but everywhere. A training program for businesses about unconscious bias and discrimination. Something real and meaningful, not just checking boxes. A mentorship initiative connecting successful Black professionals with young people who needed guidance. These were things he could control, things he could build, things that would outlast Richard Brennan's hatred. By the time Michael finished writing, it was past midnight. He was exhausted, but his mind was clear. He knew what he needed to do next. Tomorrow, he would call his agent. They would discuss these initiatives, figure out funding, build partnerships, create something lasting. But tonight, he would rest. He would let go of Richard Brennan's unrepentant letter and focus instead on all the people who had shown him that change was possible. Thomas Mitchell and his commitment to learning, Jennifer Hayes and her courage to walk away, David Brennan and his choice to expose his father's hatred, Dorothy Washington and her lifetime of wisdom, Marcus Jr. and his promise to keep fighting, Aisha Williams and her brave question. These were the people who gave him hope. These were the reasons he would keep going. Michael put the letter in a drawer and locked it. Then he went to bed. Tomorrow was a new day, and tomorrow he would keep building, keep pushing, keep fighting for a world where no one had to prove their humanity in a hotel lobby. Michael woke early Friday morning to his alarm. 6 o'clock. The sun was just starting to rise over Lake Michigan, painting the water gold and pink. He'd slept better than expected, dreamless and deep. He made coffee and sat at his kitchen table with the notebook he'd written in last night. The ideas looked even better in the morning light. Real, achievable, important. His phone rang. Marcus. Morning. You ready for today? Michael had almost forgotten. The official press conference at the United Center. The Bulls organization wanted to show their support publicly. David Stern, the NBA commissioner, was flying in to make a statement. Ready as I'll ever be, Michael said. Car picks you up at 9. Press conference is at 11. After Marcus hung up, Michael called his mother. How you feeling today, baby? Dolores asked. Better. I read Brennan's letter last night. Dolores was quiet for a moment. And he's not sorry, not even a little bit. He thinks I'm the problem, that I played the race card, that he did nothing wrong. Some people never change, Dolores said sadly. Their hearts are too hard, too closed. I know, but Mama, I realized something. I can't fix him. I can only focus on the people who want to be better. Michael told her about his ideas, the scholarships, the training programs, the mentorship initiative. Now that's my son, Dolores said, pride thick in her voice. Turning pain into purpose. That's what real strength looks like. At 9 o'clock, a black car pulled up outside Michael's building. He rode to the United Center in silence, watching Chicago pass by outside the window. This city had been good to him, had celebrated his victories, had embraced him as one of their own. The United Center was already buzzing with activity. Camera crews set up in the media room. Reporters checked their equipment. Security kept crowds back behind barriers. Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls owner, met Michael in a private room backstage. Michael, I want you to know that the organization stands behind you 100%. What happened in Wilmington was disgraceful. We're proud of how you handled it. Thank you, Mr. Reinsdorf. I mean it, you showed grace and strength. You made this team proud, made this city proud. At 10:45, David Stern arrived. The NBA commissioner was a tall man with sharp features and an intense gaze. He shook Michael's hand firmly. Michael, I've been commissioner for 9 years now. I've dealt with a lot of difficult situations, but what happened to you hit me hard, because it reminded me that no matter how successful our players are, no matter how much they achieve, racism still exists. Yes, sir, Michael said. I'm going to make a statement today about the NBA's commitment to fighting discrimination. Not just empty words, but real policies, real training, real accountability. Stern looked Michael in the eye. And I want you to know that if any team, any arena, any hotel we work with treats you or any other player this way, there will be consequences, real consequences. Michael felt emotion rise in his throat. I appreciate that, Commissioner. At 11 o'clock, they walked onto the stage together. The media room was packed. Every seat filled, cameras everywhere. The energy was different from Wilmington, more professional, more formal, but just as intense. Stern spoke first. "Good morning. I'm here today to address the incident involving Michael Jordan at the Wilmington Hilton. First, let me be clear. What happened to Michael was wrong. Completely, unequivocally wrong. He was racially profiled. He was subjected to discriminatory treatment. He was called a racial slur. These facts are not in dispute." The room was silent except for the click of cameras. The NBA has always prided itself on being a diverse league. 75% of our players are black. Many of our coaches and staff are people of color. We celebrate that diversity. But we also recognize that diversity alone doesn't eliminate racism. Our players, no matter how famous, no matter how successful, still face discrimination. Stern's voice grew stronger. "That ends now. Today, I'm announcing new initiatives. First, the NBA will partner with hotels, restaurants, and businesses in every city where we play. We will require anti-discrimination training as a condition of our partnerships. Second, we will create a hotline for players to report incidents of discrimination. Every report will be investigated. Every incident will have consequences. Third, we will establish a task force on race relations, led by players and coaches, to address these issues head-on." He paused. Michael Jordan showed tremendous grace under pressure. He maintained his dignity when someone tried to strip it away. He spoke truth when silence would have been easier. The NBA is proud to have him as one of our ambassadors, and we commit to creating a world where players never have to face what he faced. Stern stepped back. Michael stepped forward to the microphone. "Thank you, Commissioner Stern. Thank you for your support and your commitment to action." Michael looked out at the sea of reporters. "I want to say something to the players in this league, especially the young guys just coming up. What happened to me can happen to you, will probably happen to you, because racism doesn't care if you're Michael Jordan or a rookie making league minimum." He gripped the podium. "But I also want you to know that you don't have to stay silent. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to protect other people's comfort at the expense of your own dignity. Speak up. Tell your truth. Use your platform." Michael's voice softened slightly. "I'm announcing today that I'm creating the Jordan Foundation for Equality and Justice. It will fund scholarships for kids from underserved communities. It will provide training for businesses on unconscious bias. It will support organizations fighting discrimination. And it will be my way of turning this painful experience into something positive." Reporters scribbled furiously. "I'm also committing to speak openly about racism when I see it. For years, I stayed quiet about these issues. I thought if I just focused on basketball, if I just worked hard and won championships, that would be enough. But it's not enough. Silence allows racism to continue. Silence lets people like Richard Brennan think they've done nothing wrong." Michael looked directly into the cameras. "To every young person watching, especially young black kids, you are worthy. You are valuable. You deserve respect. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to prove your humanity. You are enough exactly as you are." The room erupted in applause. Reporters stood. Cameras flashed. Michael stepped back. Jerry Reinsdorf came to the microphone. "The Chicago Bulls are honored to have Michael Jordan on our team, not just because he's the greatest basketball player in the world, but because he's a man of character and courage. We support everything he said today. We support the Jordan Foundation, and we commit to doing our part to fight discrimination in Chicago and everywhere the Bulls play." The press conference opened up for questions. Hands shot up everywhere. A reporter from the Chicago Tribune stood. "Michael, have you heard from Richard Brennan since he was fired?" Michael thought about the letter locked in his desk drawer. He could mention it, could read parts of it to show how unrepentant Brennan remained. but he'd made his decision last night. Forward, not backward. I haven't heard from him directly, no, but I don't need to. His actions spoke loud enough. Another reporter. Commissioner Stern, will the NBA take action against the Wilmington Hilton? We're reviewing all our partnerships. If hotels or businesses don't meet our standards for treating people with dignity and respect, we'll find new partners. A young black reporter stood. Michael, you mentioned staying quiet about racism for years. Why speak up now? What changed? Michael thought carefully before answering. I think I finally understood that excellence isn't enough. I thought if I was good enough, successful enough, famous enough, that racism would just go away. But it doesn't work that way. Racism doesn't care about your achievements. It sees your skin color first, always. He paused. And I realized I have a responsibility. Kids look up to me. If I stay silent, I'm teaching them that silence is acceptable, that you should just take it and move on. I don't want to teach them that anymore. More questions came. About endorsements, about the upcoming season, about whether Michael would continue speaking out. To every question, Michael gave honest answers. Yes, some sponsors were nervous. Yes, he might lose endorsement deals. Yes, he planned to keep speaking out because some things were more important than money. Near the end, a white reporter in the back raised his hand. Michael, I'm from Wilmington. I've covered sports there for 20 years. I want to apologize on behalf of my city. What happened to you doesn't represent all of us. I know, Michael said. I met many good people in Wilmington, people like Thomas Mitchell who used his voice to defend me. Jennifer Hayes, who quit her job rather than stay silent. Dorothy Washington, who shared her wisdom. Your city has good people, but it also has work to do. We all do. The press conference ended. Michael shook hands with Commissioner Stern and Mr. Riensdorf. They took a photo together, a show of unity and support that would appear in newspapers across the country. As Michael left the United Center, reporters shouted final questions. Michael, will you go back to Wilmington? Michael, have you talked to your teammates about this? Michael, what do you want people to remember? Michael stopped and turned back. He hadn't planned to say anything more, but the last question deserved an answer. I want people to remember that change is possible, that communities can come together, that individuals can choose to be better. I saw that in Wilmington. I'm seeing it here in Chicago. I hope to see it everywhere. He paused. But I also want people to remember that the work is never done, that every generation has to fight for justice, that we can't get comfortable or complacent. We have to keep pushing, keep demanding, keep believing that a better world is possible. He got in the car and it pulled away. Through the tinted windows, he watched the reporters scatter, already calling their editors, already writing their stories. Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Scottie Pippen, his teammate and friend. Proud of you, man. That took guts. See you at practice Monday. More texts came in, from B.J. Armstrong, from Horace Grant, from coaches and staff, all expressing support. Then a text from an unknown number. Mr. Jordan, this is Thomas Mitchell. I just watched your press conference with my son TJ. He's decided he wants to start a club at his school about fighting racism. He says you inspired him. Thank you for showing us how to be brave. Michael smiled and typed back. Tell TJ I'm proud of him. The next generation is going to change the world. The car drove through Chicago streets, past the stadium where Michael had won 3 championships, past the neighborhoods where kids played basketball on outdoor courts, dreaming of being like Mike, past restaurants and shops and hotels where black people went about their daily lives, hoping not to be questioned, followed, or suspected. This was the world he lived in, a world where you could be Michael Jordan, famous, successful, beloved by millions, and still be seen as suspicious, still be treated as less than, still have to prove your worth. But it was also a world where change was possible, where communities could come together, where individuals could choose courage over comfort, where kids like Marcus Jr. and TJ Mitchell were learning to stand up for justice. The car pulled up to Michael's building. He thanked the driver and went inside. Pete, the doorman, smiled. "Saw you on TV, Mr. Jordan. You said some important things that needed to be said." "Thank you, Pete. My son's 11, he's black like me, and every day I worry about him, worry about what he'll face, how people will treat him." Pete's voice was thick. "But watching you speak up gives me hope, gives him hope. So thank you, really." Michael shook his hand. "Keep teaching your son to stand tall. That's what my parents taught me, and it's the only way forward." Upstairs in his apartment, Michael changed out of his suit and into comfortable clothes. He made himself lunch and sat at his kitchen table, eating slowly, thinking about everything that had happened. 5 days ago, he'd been just a basketball player. Famous, yes. Successful, yes, but focused mainly on the court. Now he was something more, a voice for change, a symbol of resistance, a man who turned personal pain into public purpose. It wasn't a role he'd asked for, but it was the role he had. And he would carry it with the same dedication he brought to basketball. His phone rang one more time. "David Brennan. Mr. Jordan, I hope I'm not bothering you." "No, it's okay. What's up?" "I'm starting the documentary, The Lobby, and I wanted to get your permission to use your press conference footage, both of them, Wilmington and Chicago." Michael thought about that, about his pain being turned into art, his story being told by someone else, but David had earned some trust. He'd chosen truth over family. He'd exposed his father's hatred. He'd committed to documenting racism honestly. "You can use the footage," Michael said. "But David, tell the whole story. Don't just focus on me. Tell Thomas Mitchell's story, Jennifer Hayes' story, Dorothy Washington's story. Tell the story of a community trying to do better." "I will," David promised. "I'll tell it right." After the call, Michael finally allowed himself to rest. He lay on his couch, exhausted but satisfied. He'd done what he needed to do, said what he needed to say, started the work that needed to be started. Tomorrow he would go to practice, would joke with his teammates, would shoot baskets and run plays and prepare for the next season. But he would also carry this experience with him, would remember the hotel lobby, would remember Richard Brennan's cold eyes and hateful words, would remember the kids asking questions, would remember the community coming together. All of it would fuel him, push him, remind him why the work mattered. Michael closed his eyes and let sleep finally come. Michael slept for 3 hours straight. When he woke, the afternoon sun was streaming through his windows. He felt different, lighter, like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. His phone showed 23 missed calls. He scrolled through them. His agent, Nike, Gatorade, McDonald's. All the companies he had endorsement deals with, all wanting to talk. He called his agent first. "Michael, thank God. Listen, we need to discuss your statements. Some of the sponsors are concerned." "Concerned about what?" Michael asked, though he already knew. "About you becoming too political, about alienating customers. Nike is worried that taking a strong stance on race might hurt shoe sales in certain markets." Michael walked to his window and looked out at the lake. The water was calm today, reflecting the blue sky like a mirror. "Tell Nike that if they have a problem with me standing up for human dignity, then maybe we're not a good fit anymore." His agent was quiet. "Michael, do you know how much money we're talking about? $4 million a year. That's just Nike. Add in all your other deals." "I know how much money it is," Michael said calmly. "But I also know how much my integrity is worth, and it's worth more than any endorsement deal. Let me talk to them. Maybe we can find a middle ground." "There is no middle ground on this. Either they support me or they don't. I'm not going to apologize for speaking the truth. I'm not going to stay quiet to make them comfortable. Tell them that." After he hung up, Michael felt surprisingly calm. Maybe he would lose his endorsement deals. Maybe companies would decide he was too controversial, but at least he could look at himself in the mirror. At least he could face kids like Marcus Jr. and Aisha Williams without feeling like a hypocrite. His phone rang again. This time it was Phil Jackson, his coach. "Michael, I watched both press conferences. I'm proud of you. The whole team is proud of you." "Thanks, coach. Listen, I know this week has been difficult. If you need more time before coming back to practice, take it. Your mental health matters more than basketball." Michael smiled. Phil Jackson was different from most coaches. He understood that players were people first, athletes second. "I'll be there Monday, ready to work." "Good, because we've got another championship to win. And I think you're going to play with a new kind of fire this season." Phil was right. Michael could already feel it. A hunger that went deeper than winning games. A desire to prove that you could stand up for what's right and still be excellent at what you do. The weekend passed quietly. Michael stayed in his apartment, avoiding the media circus. He worked out in his private gym. He watched game film. He thought about the upcoming season. On Sunday evening, his mother called. "How are you holding up, baby?" "I'm okay, Mama. Better than okay, actually." "Good, because I have something to tell you. Jennifer Hayes called me." "Jennifer, the woman from the hotel?" "Yes. She wanted to thank you. Said that 3 companies offered her jobs after she quit. She took a position at a law firm, making more money than she did at the hotel with better benefits. And she said it's all because she found the courage to walk away from something wrong." Michael felt warmth spread through his chest. That's wonderful. And that's not all. Thomas Mitchell started something in his neighborhood, weekly meetings where people talk honestly about race. White folks and black folks sitting down together, having hard conversations. He said over 50 families have joined. "That's good," Michael said. "That's real change." "And Dorothy Washington sent you a letter. I'll read it to you." Michael heard paper rustling. "Dear Michael," Dolores read, "you probably don't remember, but my grandson Marcus came home from your camp and told me something. He said you kneeled down to talk to him. Made yourself eye level with a little boy so he wouldn't feel small. That gesture meant everything to him, to all of us. It showed that even when you were hurting, you still had room in your heart to see other people's pain. That's true grace. My grandson talks about you every day. Not about your basketball skills, but about your character. You've given him something to aspire to beyond sports. You've shown him what it means to be a good man. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming home. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for showing us that change is possible. With love and gratitude, Dorothy Washington." Dolores stopped reading. Michael could hear the emotion in her voice. "That's beautiful, Mama." "It is. And it's the real impact of what you did, Michael. Not the press conferences or the media attention, but the individual lives you touched. The people you inspired to be braver, stronger, more honest." They talked for a while longer, then said goodnight. Monday morning came. Michael woke at 5:30 full of energy. He put on his practice gear and drove to the Bulls facility. The parking lot was mostly empty. He was early as always. Inside, the gym was quiet. Michael grabbed a basketball and started shooting. The familiar rhythm calmed him. Dribble, shoot, swish. Dribble, shoot, swish. This was his meditation, his prayer. "Thought I'd find you here." Michael turned. Scottie Pippen stood at the entrance, also in practice gear. "Couldn't sleep?" Michael asked. "Nah, too excited for the season." Scottie grabbed a ball and joined Michael on the court. They shot together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Scottie said, "What you did took courage, speaking up like that. A lot of guys wouldn't have." "I didn't have a choice. Not really. Staying silent felt worse than speaking up." "I know, but still." Scottie made a three-pointer. "You changed something. Made it okay for the rest of us to talk about this stuff. made it okay to be black and successful and still admit that racism affects us. Other teammates started arriving. B.J. Armstrong, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright. One by one they came over and dapped Michael up. No long speeches, just solidarity, support, understanding. Phil Jackson arrived and called them together for a team meeting. Before we start practice, I want to address what happened with Michael. What he experienced was wrong. What he did, speaking out, was brave. This team stands with him. And this team stands against discrimination in all forms. If any of you ever face something like this, you tell me. You tell the organization. We'll handle it together. The team nodded. Someone said, "That's right, coach." Phil continued. "Now we've got a championship to defend. We've got opponents who think last year was a fluke. We've got critics who think we're getting old, getting soft. Let's prove them all wrong." Practice was intense. Michael played with a fury he hadn't felt in years. Every shot was personal. Every defensive stop was a statement. He was Michael Jordan. And nobody, not Richard Brennan, not racism, not anything, could take that away from him. After practice, Michael showered and checked his phone, a voicemail from his agent. "Michael, call me back. I have news about Nike." Michael dialed. "So I talked to Nike," his agent said. "They want to meet with you. They have a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "They want to expand your deal, not just shoes anymore. They want to create a whole social justice line. Proceeds go to your foundation. They want to make a statement that they stand with you, that they support athletes using their platforms for change." Michael was stunned. "They're not dropping me." "Drop you, Michael? You're the most valuable athlete they have. And after your press conferences, your approval ratings went up. People respect what you did. They see you as more than just a basketball player now. You're a leader." After the call, Michael sat in his car in the parking lot, processing this information. He'd been prepared to lose everything, prepared to sacrifice his endorsements for his principles. But instead, the opposite had happened. Companies wanted to align with him, wanted to be part of the change he was creating. His phone buzzed with a text from David Brennan. "Mr. Jordan, I've been interviewing people for the documentary. Everyone keeps saying the same thing, that what you did gave them permission to speak their truth. You started something. Thank you." Michael typed back, "Thank you for documenting it. Make sure you tell the whole story." "I will, including my father's letter." Michael's fingers froze over the keyboard. "What?" "My mother found it. The letter my father wrote to you. She was so horrified by what he said that she gave me a copy. She wants the world to know who he really is. She wants to stop protecting him. Can I include it in the documentary?" Michael thought about Richard Brennan's words, the denial, the defensiveness, the complete lack of remorse. Part of him wanted to keep that letter private, but another part understood that people needed to see it, needed to understand that racism wasn't just obvious acts of violence, but also subtle acts of denial. "Yes," Michael typed. "Include it. People need to see the truth." That evening, Michael made dinner in his apartment. Simple pasta with vegetables. He ate at his kitchen table looking out at the city lights. His phone rang one more time. An unknown number from North Carolina. "Hello. Mr. Jordan, this is Aisha Williams, the girl from the camp." "Aisha, hi, how are you?" "I'm good. My mama said I could call you. I wanted to tell you something." "Okay, I'm listening." "Today at school, a boy said something mean about my skin color, called me a name, and I remembered what you said at the camp about keeping your dignity, about not letting people make you feel small. So I told the teacher, and the teacher talked to the boy, and he had to apologize." Michael's throat tightened. "I'm so proud of you, Aisha. That took courage." "You made me brave," she said simply. "You showed me that speaking up matters, that telling the truth matters, even when it's scary. You did that yourself. I just reminded you of something you already knew. My mama wants to talk to you now." A woman's voice came on the line. "Mr. Jordan, this is Carol Williams, Aisha's mother. I can't thank you enough. My daughter has been different since your camp, more confident, more willing to stand up for herself. You gave her something precious, the belief that her voice matters." "She's a special kid," Michael said. "You should be proud." "I am, and I'm proud of you too, for showing our children what real strength looks like." After the call, Michael sat for a long time in the quiet apartment. He thought about the journey of the past week, from humiliation in a hotel lobby to inspiring a 10-year-old girl to use her voice. This was why it mattered. This was why speaking up was worth the risk, not for the press conferences or the media attention, not even for the policy changes or the commitments to action, but for moments like this, for little girls finding their courage, for communities coming together, for people choosing to be better. Michael walked to his desk and unlocked the drawer where he'd put Richard Brennan's letter. He pulled it out and read it one more time. The denial, the defensiveness, the hatred wrapped in the language of innocence. But now, reading it again, Michael felt something different. Not anger, not sadness, something closer to pity. Richard Brennan would spend the rest of his life believing he was the victim, believing he'd done nothing wrong, believing that the world had turned against him unfairly. And Michael couldn't fix that, couldn't change that, couldn't make Brennan see the truth. But he could make sure that kids like Aisha Williams and Marcus Jr. grew up in a world that was better than the one Brennan lived in. A world where speaking up was normalized, where standing against injustice was expected, where dignity and respect weren't privileges but rights. That was the real work. Not changing the hearts of those who refused to change, but building a future where their hatred had less power. Michael put the letter back in the drawer. He wouldn't destroy it, wouldn't forget it, but he wouldn't let it define him either. Tomorrow, he would keep building, keep pushing, keep using his voice and his platform to create change. But tonight, he would rest, would let himself feel proud of what he'd accomplished, would let himself believe that the world could be better. Michael turned off the lights and went to bed. As he lay in the darkness, he thought about his father's words. "You don't have a place anymore. You broke free." James Jordan was right. Michael had broken free of so many constraints, had achieved things that once seemed impossible, had become Michael Jordan. But he'd also learned something important this week. That being Michael Jordan wasn't enough to protect him from racism. That success and fame didn't make you immune to hatred. And yet, being Michael Jordan also meant he had a platform, a voice, a responsibility to use both for good. He would carry that responsibility for the rest of his life. Would speak up when he saw injustice, would support others who were fighting, would build programs and foundations that created real change. This was his legacy now. Not just championships and records, but the example he set for the next generation. The courage he showed, the truth he spoke. Michael closed his eyes and smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow was a new day, and tomorrow he would keep fighting. Not with fists or anger, but with grace and truth and an unshakable belief that most people wanted to do better, wanted to be better. He would keep the faith, keep the hope, keep pushing forward, because that's what his parents taught him. That's what Dorothy Washington lived. That's what those kids at the camp needed to see. That change was possible. That justice was worth fighting for. That every single person had the power to make the world a little bit better. Michael Jordan fell asleep with that thought. And when he woke in the morning, he would rise with purpose, ready to face whatever came next, ready to keep building the world he wanted to see, ready to be more than just a basketball player, ready to be Michael Jordan, the man who turned pain into purpose, humiliation into hope, and a terrible moment in a hotel lobby into a movement for change. 3 weeks had passed since the press conference in Chicago. Michael was back in his rhythm, practice, games, interviews, but something had shifted. Everywhere he went, people looked at him differently. not just as a basketball player, but as someone who'd stood up for something bigger. The season was going well. The Bulls were winning. Michael was averaging 32 points per game, but the questions from reporters had changed. "Michael, how has speaking out about racism affected your game?" "Michael, have you heard from other players who have faced discrimination?" "Michael, when will the Jordan Foundation officially launch?" Tonight was different. Tonight, the video was airing. David Brennan had finished his documentary. NBC was broadcasting a special hour-long program called The Lobby, Michael Jordan and the Fight Against Everyday Racism. Michael sat in his apartment with Marcus, waiting for it to start. His hands were sweaty. He didn't know what to expect. At 8 o'clock, the program began. The screen showed the Wilmington Hilton, that beautiful lobby with its marble floors and golden light. Then the footage started, Michael walking in with his bag, Jennifer Hayes smiling behind the desk. Everything normal until Richard Brennan approached. Michael watched himself on television, watched the confrontation unfold. Even knowing what happened, seeing it again made his stomach turn. The documentary didn't just show the incident, it showed interviews David had conducted over the past 3 weeks. Thomas Mitchell appeared on screen, sitting in his living room with TJ. "I'd like to think I'm not racist," Thomas said. "I have black colleagues, I voted for black politicians. But watching Michael Jordan get treated that way, actually witnessing it, I realized I didn't understand racism at all. I'd been passive. Comfortable. I thought if I wasn't actively doing harm, that was enough. But it's not enough." TJ spoke next. "My dad changed after that night. He started asking me questions about my black friends at school, about whether they get treated different. And I never thought about it before, but yeah, they do. Teachers call on them less. Security watches them more. And I never noticed because it wasn't happening to me." The documentary cut to Jennifer Hayes. "I worked at that hotel for 3 years. I saw things, little things. The way managers watched certain guests more carefully. The way they questioned some reservations but not others. But I told myself it wasn't my place to say anything. I needed the job." Her eyes filled with tears. "When I saw what Mr. Brennan did to Michael Jordan, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Some things are more important than a paycheck." Dorothy Washington appeared next, sitting in her living room with Eugene and Marcus Jr. "I'm 73 years old," Dorothy said. "I've lived through Jim Crow. I've seen lynchings. I've watched my people fight for rights that should have been ours from the beginning. And I'll tell you something. What happened to Michael Jordan wasn't unusual. It was just filmed. Black people face this every single day. We just don't have cameras to prove it." Marcus Jr. spoke, his voice serious beyond his 10 years. "Mr. Jordan made me understand that being strong isn't about muscles or winning games. It's about standing up when things are wrong, even when you're scared, even when it costs you something." The documentary showed footage from the basketball camp. Aisha Williams asking her brave question. Michael's honest answer. The kids listening with wide eyes. Then came the interviews Michael had given. The press conference in Wilmington. The one in Chicago. His words about dignity and respect and the exhausting burden of constantly proving your humanity. But the most powerful moment came next. The screen showed Richard Brennan's letter. David's voice narrated as the words appeared on screen. "My father wrote this letter to Michael Jordan the day after the incident. My mother found it and gave me permission to share it. She said the world needs to see who he really is, that she's done protecting him." The letter filled the screen paragraph by paragraph. The denial, the defensiveness, the blame, the refusal to accept any responsibility. Michael watched America read his private humiliation, read Brennan's unrepentant hatred. Then David appeared on camera for the first time. He looked tired but determined. He sat in what looked like a small apartment, his camera equipment visible in the background. "That's my father's handwriting. Those are his words. And I want everyone watching to understand something. He's not sorry. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He truly believes that questioning Michael Jordan, calling security, using that slur, all of it was justified. David's voice cracked slightly. I grew up listening to my father say these things about black people, about other minorities, and for a long time I believed him, because he was my father, because I didn't know any different. But then I went to college. I met people who weren't like me, and I learned that everything I'd been taught was wrong. He looked directly into the camera. My father represents something bigger than just one racist hotel manager. He represents a system, a way of thinking, a refusal to change or grow or acknowledge harm. And the only way to fight that system is to expose it, to show it for what it is, to stop making excuses for it. The documentary ended with footage from the community gathering at Laney High School. Thomas Mitchell's Wilmington commitment with all those signatures, people making promises, taking responsibility, choosing to be better. The final shot was of Michael shooting baskets on the Laney High court, alone in the gym where it all began. David's voice played over the image. Michael Jordan could have stayed silent. He could have moved on. He could have prioritized his endorsements and his comfort over truth, but he didn't. He spoke up, and in speaking up, he gave permission to others to do the same. That's the real story here. Not what happened in a hotel lobby, but what happened after. The courage that spreads when one person refuses to accept injustice. The program ended. Michael sat in silence, staring at the black screen. His phone immediately started ringing, but he didn't answer. He just sat there processing what he'd watched. "That was powerful," Marcus said quietly. Michael nodded. "Yeah, it was." Over the next hour, messages flooded in. His mother, "So proud of you, baby. That documentary will change hearts." Scottie Pippen, "Just watched. Damn man, that was real. That was important." Magic Johnson, "You're making a difference. Keep going." Coach Phil Jackson, "Documentary was excellent. See you at practice tomorrow." And then messages from people Michael didn't know, athletes from other sports, actors, musicians, regular people thanking him for speaking up, sharing their own stories of discrimination. A text from Thomas Mitchell, "TJ and I watched together. He cried when he saw your part about dignity. Said he wants to be like you when he grows up. Not the basketball part, the courage part." A voicemail from Jennifer Hayes, "Mr. Jordan, I started my new job this week, and on my first day I told them about what happened, about why I quit, and they said they want me to help train their staff on anti-discrimination policies. I'm going to make a real difference. Thank you for giving me that courage." An email from David Brennan. "The response has been overwhelming. NBC is getting thousands of calls. They want to do a follow-up. People want to know how they can help, how they can create change in their own communities. You started something real." But the message that hit Michael hardest came from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Jordan, my name is Marcus Washington Jr. My grandma helped me write this. I watched the documentary tonight. When I saw my part, when I heard myself talking about you, I felt proud. But then I felt something else. I felt responsible, because you showed me that I have power, that my voice matters, that I can make things better. So I'm going to try. I'm going to speak up at school when I see unfairness. I'm going to ask questions when things don't seem right. I'm going to be brave like you. Thank you for teaching me that. Love, Marcus Jr." Michael read the message 3 times. This was why it mattered. Not the media coverage or the policy changes, though those were important, but this. A 10-year-old boy understanding that he had power, that his voice mattered, that he could create change. The phone rang again. This time Michael answered. "Mr. Jordan, this is Gail King from CBS This Morning. We'd love to have you on the show tomorrow to discuss the documentary and its impact." Michael hesitated. He'd done so many interviews already. Part of him wanted to just get back to basketball, to let the documentary speak for itself. But then he thought about Marcus Jr.'s message, about Aisha finding her voice, about all the people who were watching, learning, finding their own courage. "Yes," Michael said, "I'll do it." After the call, Marcus looked at him. "You sure? You don't have to keep talking about this. You've done enough." "Have I?" Michael asked. "Because Richard Brennan's letter showed me something. This doesn't end just because I spoke up once. This is ongoing work, constant work. And if I stop now, I'm saying that my comfort matters more than the fight." "Okay," Marcus said, "then we keep going." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the documentary, about seeing himself on that screen, living through that moment again, about David Brennan's courage in exposing his own father, about all the people who'd been moved to action. At 2 in the morning, Michael got out of bed and went to his desk. He pulled out a notebook and started writing. Not a speech or a statement, just thoughts, ideas, plans. The Jordan Foundation needed to be more than just scholarships. It needed to fund training programs, support grassroots organizations fighting discrimination, create resources for people who wanted to have difficult conversations about race but didn't know how. He wrote down names, people he could partner with, civil rights leaders, educators, business leaders who were committed to real change. He wrote down goals, not vague hopes but concrete, measurable objectives, number of scholarships, number of businesses trained, number of communities reached. This was his purpose now, not instead of basketball but alongside it. He could be great at basketball and great at using his platform for change. He didn't have to choose. At 6 in the morning, Michael's phone rang. His agent. "Michael, have you seen the numbers?" "What numbers?" The documentary had 12 million viewers last night. 12 million. It's the highest-rated program NBC has aired this year outside of the Super Bowl. Michael let that sink in. 12 million people had watched. 12 million people had seen Richard Brennan's hatred and his own response to it. And that's not all, his agent continued. Nike called. They want to accelerate the social justice line. They're talking about a major campaign, print ads, TV commercials, billboards, all featuring you speaking out about equality and justice. "What about the markets that might be alienated?" Michael asked, remembering their earlier conversation. "They don't care anymore. They've seen the response to the documentary. They've seen your approval ratings. Turns out that standing up for what's right is actually good business. People respect it. People want to support companies that support you." After the call, Michael got ready for the CBS interview. He put on a suit, the same one he'd worn for the Chicago press conference. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked tired. The past 3 weeks had taken a toll, but he also looked determined, ready, strong. The car picked him up at 7. The CBS studio was downtown, a tall building with the network's logo gleaming in the morning sun. Gayle King met him in the green room. She was warm and professional, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Jordan, thank you for coming. I watched the documentary last night. I've been a journalist for 20 years and I've never seen anything quite like it. The honesty, the rawness, the refusal to look away from difficult truths." "Thank you," Michael said. "I want you to know, this interview isn't about gotcha questions or controversy. It's about having a real conversation about race in America, about what your experience represents and what we can all learn from it." Michael nodded. "I appreciate that." The interview was live. Millions of people watching their televisions over breakfast, getting ready for work, starting their day. Gayle started with a simple question. "Michael, it's been 3 weeks since that night in Wilmington. How are you doing?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "I'm okay. Some days are harder than others, but I'm grateful for what's come out of it. The conversations, the commitments to change, the people who have found their voices." The documentary showed Richard Brennan's letter. That must have been difficult to share publicly. It was, because that letter showed that he's not sorry, that he thinks I'm the problem, not him. And that's hard to accept, that some people will never change, never grow, never acknowledge the harm they cause. But you shared it anyway. Why? Because people need to see that racism isn't always obvious. It's not always burning crosses and white hoods. Sometimes it's denial, it's defensiveness. It's people who truly believe they've done nothing wrong even when confronted with clear evidence of their bias. Gail leaned forward. What do you say to people who watched that documentary and thought, this is too uncomfortable? Why do we have to keep talking about race? Michael smiled sadly. I say that their discomfort is nothing compared to the daily reality of being Black in America. If watching a 1-hour documentary makes them uncomfortable, imagine living that reality every single day. Imagine never knowing when you'll be questioned, followed, suspected, or worse. The interview continued for 20 minutes. Gail asked thoughtful questions. Michael gave honest answers, and somewhere out there, millions of people listened. When Michael left the CBS studio, he felt energized rather than drained. The interview had gone well. Gayle King had asked real questions and listened to real answers. No gotcha moments. No trying to create controversy. Just honest conversation. Marcus was waiting in the car. How'd it feel? Good, different from the press conferences. More personal, more human. They drove through Chicago's morning traffic. The city was waking up, people rushing to work, kids walking to school, the whole rhythm of daily life continuing as it always did. Michael's phone buzzed. A text from Scottie Pippen. Watched your interview at breakfast. Coach wants us at practice an hour early. Says he has something to show us. Michael texted back, on my way. At the Bulls facility, the whole team was already gathered in the film room. Phil Jackson stood at the front, remote control in hand. Morning, everyone. Michael, glad you're here. Sit down. Michael took a seat. The room was unusually quiet. Something was happening. Phil pressed play. The screen showed news footage from around the country. Cities Michael had never been to, towns he'd never heard of. In Portland, Oregon, a group of Black business owners had created their own version of the Wilmington Commitment. They called it the Portland Promise. In Atlanta, Georgia, 3 major hotels announced new training programs for all staff. They specifically mentioned Michael's experience as the reason for the change. In Detroit, Michigan, a high school started a club called The Lobby, where students discussed racism and worked on solutions. In Seattle, Washington, police officers attended a community forum about racial profiling. The forum was standing room only, footage after footage, story after story, all inspired by what had happened in Wilmington, all sparked by Michael's decision to speak up. Phil turned off the screen. This is what happens when you use your platform for good. This is the impact one person can have when they choose courage over comfort. The room was silent. Then Horace Grant started clapping. Then B.J. Armstrong, then everyone. The whole team stood and applauded. Michael felt his eyes burning. He blinked hard, trying to keep his composure. All right, Phil said with a smile. Now let's go practice. We've got the Knicks tomorrow night, and they're not going to care about documentaries and interviews. They just want to beat us. Practice was intense but good. Michael moved with purpose, with focus. Basketball was still his foundation, still the thing that made sense when everything else felt complicated. After practice, as Michael was leaving, a young player approached. His name was Steve, a rookie from Wisconsin. White kid, 22 years old, trying to make the team. Mr. Jordan, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure, Steve, what's up? Steve looked nervous. I grew up in a small town, almost all white, and I'm ashamed to say I never thought about racism much. Figured it was something from the past, But after watching your documentary, after hearing what you went through, he paused. I called my parents, had a long conversation about it, and my dad admitted he'd said racist things when I was growing up. Little comments, jokes, and I'd laughed along without thinking about what they meant. Michael waited, letting Steve find his words. I just wanted to say thank you for opening my eyes, for making me uncomfortable enough to actually examine myself. And I wanted you to know that I'm going to do better. I'm going to speak up when I hear things like that now. I'm going to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Michael shook his hand. That takes courage too. Admitting you were wrong, committing to change, I respect that. Steve nodded and walked away. Michael stood there for a moment thinking about how change worked. One conversation at a time, one person at a time, slow but steady. That afternoon, Michael had a meeting at Nike headquarters. They flew him to Oregon on a private jet. The meeting room was full of executives in expensive suits. Phil Knight, Nike's founder, was there. He stood when Michael entered. Michael, thank you for coming. We have a proposal we're excited about. They unveiled their plan, a new line called Just Us that would focus on equality and justice. Part of every sale would go to the Jordan Foundation. Marketing would feature real stories of discrimination and resistance. Commercials would show athletes using their voices for change. We want to make a statement, Phil Knight said. That Nike stands for more than just athletic performance. We stand for human dignity, and we're proud to partner with someone who embodies that. Michael looked at the presentation boards, the mock-ups, the plans. It was ambitious, risky even. Some customers would hate it. Some would say sports and politics shouldn't mix, but others would love it, would buy the shoes because they supported what they represented, would wear them proudly as a statement of values. I'm in, Michael said, but I want to be involved in every step. This isn't just about slapping my name on a product. This is about creating something meaningful. Absolutely, Phil Knight agreed. This is your vision as much as ours. Michael flew back to Chicago that evening. The jet was quiet, comfortable. He looked out at the clouds below, thinking about everything that had happened. 4 weeks ago, he'd walked into a hotel lobby in Wilmington just wanting to rest before a basketball camp. Now he was partnering with Nike on a social justice initiative, starting a foundation, doing national interviews, inspiring change across the country. His phone rang, an unfamiliar North Carolina number. Hello. Mr. Jordan, this is Thomas Mitchell. I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all, Thomas. How are you? How's TJ? We're good. Actually, that's why I'm calling. The Wilmington commitment has grown. We now have 400 signatures, and we've started actually doing things, not just promising them. Like what? Michael asked. We paired white families with black families. They meet once a week to talk about their experiences, share perspectives, build real relationships. We call it the Bridge Program. Thomas's voice grew excited. And 3 local businesses hired diversity consultants to review their practices. The school board approved new curriculum about Wilmington's racial history, the real history, including the 1898 massacre. And the police department started community policing training. Michael smiled. That's incredible, Thomas. It's because of you. Because you didn't stay silent. You gave us the courage to actually do something instead of just feeling bad about racism. You gave yourself that courage, Michael said. I just showed you what was already there. After the call, Michael sat quietly in the jet. This was what mattered, not the documentaries or the endorsement deals or the media attention, but this, real change in real communities, real people doing real work. When Michael landed in Chicago, Marcus was waiting with news. The foundation received its first major donation, $250,000 from an anonymous donor. Michael's eyes widened. Anonymous. The only note said, "Thank you for your courage. This is for the kids who need it most. Over the next few days, more donations came in. 10,000 here, 5,000 there. Sometimes small amounts, $20 from a grandmother in Ohio who said she wanted to help. $50 from a college student who said the documentary changed his life. The money added up, but more than the money, the messages mattered. Hundreds of people writing to say they'd been inspired, that they were making changes in their own lives, that they were having hard conversations with family and friends, that they were choosing to be part of the solution. A week later, Michael attended a Bulls game against the New York Knicks. The United Center was packed, 21,000 fans screaming and cheering. But something was different tonight. In the crowd, Michael saw signs, not just "Go Bulls" or "We love MJ," but messages like, "Thank you for speaking up. Black Lives Matter, justice for all, the lobby changed me." During warm-ups, fans chanted his name differently. Not just MJ, MJ, but "Thank you, thank you." Michael felt emotion rise in his throat. These people got it. They understood that this was about more than basketball. The game was close. The Knicks were tough, but Michael played like he was possessed. 38 points, 7 assists, 5 steals. The Bulls won by 6. In the post-game interview, a reporter asked, "Michael, you seem to be playing with extra intensity lately. Is that connected to what happened in Wilmington?" Michael thought about how to answer. "I've always played with intensity, but yeah, something has shifted. I feel like I'm playing for more than just wins and losses now. I'm playing for every kid who's been told they don't belong, for every person who's been judged by their skin, for everyone who's had to prove their worth over and over again." The reporter nodded. "One more question. Have you heard from Richard Brennan since the documentary aired?" "No, and I don't expect to. Some people never change, but that's okay. I'm not doing this for him, I'm doing it for everyone else." That night, back in his apartment, Michael received an email. The subject line said, "From Wilmington with love." He opened it. Inside was a video file. Michael clicked play. The video showed the Laney High School gymnasium, but it wasn't empty. It was full of people, kids from the basketball camp. Dorothy and Eugene Washington, Marcus Jr., Aisha Williams, Jennifer Hayes, Coach Herring, Thomas Mitchell and his family. They were all holding signs that spelled out, "Thank you, Michael." Then they started talking one by one. "Aisha, you taught me to use my voice." "Marcus Jr., you showed me what courage looks like." "Jennifer, you gave me the strength to choose integrity over comfort." "Thomas, you opened my eyes to my own privilege and responsibility." "Dorothy, you carried the weight with grace, just like your parents taught you." One after another they spoke, sharing how Michael's experience had changed them, inspired them, motivated them to be better. The video ended with all of them together, smiling, waving at the camera. Michael watched it 3 times, tears streaming down his face. This was why it had all been worth it. The humiliation, the pain, the risk, the exhaustion, because lives were changing. Hearts were opening. Communities were coming together. His phone buzzed with a text from David Brennan. "Did you see the video? The Wilmington community made it for you. They wanted you to know that you started something that won't stop. The work continues, and they're committed to it." Michael texted back, "Thank you for documenting all of this, for helping people understand, for choosing truth over comfort." David replied, "Thank you for giving me something true to document. The film is being shown in schools now, universities, community centers. Your story is becoming a teaching tool. That's powerful." Michael set down his phone and walked to his window. Chicago glowed below him, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there, people were having conversations they'd never had before, making commitments they'd never made before, choosing courage they'd never chosen before, all because one man refused to stay silent about his pain. All because one man chose to turn humiliation into hope. All because one man believed that speaking up mattered, even when staying quiet would have been easier. Michael thought about his father's words, "You don't have a place anymore, you broke free." James Jordan was right. Michael had broken free of so many limitations, had achieved so much, had become someone millions looked up to, but he'd also learned that freedom came with responsibility, that having a platform meant using it, that being Michael Jordan meant more than just playing basketball. It meant standing up, speaking out, using his voice to create change, and he would keep doing it for the rest of his career, for the rest of his life. Because some things were more important than endorsements or comfort or avoiding controversy. Things like dignity, justice, equality, truth. Things worth fighting for. Things worth sacrificing for. Things worth being uncomfortable for. Michael Jordan smiled at his reflection in the dark window. He was ready for whatever came next. Ready to keep building. Ready to keep pushing. Ready to keep fighting. Not with anger or bitterness, but with grace and strength and an unshakable belief that change was possible. That people could grow, that communities could heal, that the future could be better than the past. One conversation at a time, one person at a time, one act of courage at a time, the work continued. And Michael Jordan would be part of it, not because he had to, but because he chose to, because that's what it meant to be more than just an athlete, to be a leader, a voice, a force for change. And Michael Jordan was ready to be all of those things, starting now, starting always. 2 months had passed since that night in Wilmington. It was now late May 1993, and the Bulls were deep in the playoffs. They'd made it to the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks. The series was tied 2-2, and Game 5 was tonight at the United Center. But before the game, Michael had one more thing to do. He stood backstage at a community center on Chicago's South Side. The room was packed with 200 kids, ages 8 to 16. All of them from neighborhoods where opportunities were scarce and challenges were plenty. All of them here for the first official event of the Jordan Foundation for Equality and Justice. Marcus checked the microphone. "You ready?" Michael nodded. "Let's do this." He walked onto the small stage. The kids erupted in cheers. Some wore Bulls jerseys. Some wore shoes Michael had signed. All of them looked at him with hope in their eyes. "Thank you for coming," Michael said. "I know you've heard my story by now. What happened to me in Wilmington, how it went public, how people responded." The room was completely silent. "But today isn't about me. Today is about you. Because you're the reason I started this foundation. You're the reason I spoke up. You're the future that we're fighting for." Michael looked around the room, making eye contact with as many kids as he could. Some of you have faced discrimination. Some of you have been followed in stores, questioned by police, treated like you don't belong. Some of you are tired of having to prove yourself over and over again. Heads nodded. A few kids wiped their eyes. "I want you to know something. That exhaustion is real. That pain is valid. You're not making it up. You're not being too sensitive. What you're experiencing is wrong and it needs to change." A hand went up. A girl, maybe 13, with braids and glasses. "Yes," Michael pointed to her. "Mr. Jordan, how do you keep going? How do you stay strong when people treat you bad?" Michael smiled sadly. "That's a really good question, and I'll be honest, some days I don't feel strong. Some days I'm tired and angry and hurt. But then I think about my parents, about how they faced even worse and never gave up. I think about people like Dorothy Washington, who's been fighting for 73 years and still shows up. And I think about kids like you, who deserve better than what we've given you." He paused. "That's how I keep going. Not because I'm strong all the time, but because giving up isn't an option. Because the alternative, staying silent, accepting injustice, that hurts more than fighting does." Another hand, a boy maybe 10. "Are you scared when you speak up?" Yes, Michael said honestly. Every time. I was scared at that press conference in Wilmington, scared when I did interviews, scared that I'd lose everything I'd worked for. But I learned something important. Courage isn't not being scared. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. More hands went up. Michael spent the next hour answering questions about basketball, yes, but mostly about life, about handling racism, about staying hopeful, about using your voice even when it shakes. Finally, it was time to make the big announcement. Okay, everyone, I have some news. Today, the Jordan Foundation is officially launching 3 programs. Marcus wheeled out a presentation board with details. First, the scholarship program. We're giving out 50 scholarships this year, $25,000 each, to students from underserved communities. That's over $1 million in college funding. The room exploded in applause. Second, the Bridge program. We're partnering with schools in 10 cities to create dialogue groups where kids of different races can have honest conversations about their experiences, learn from each other, build real friendships. More applause. And third, the Youth Leadership Institute. Every summer, we'll bring together 100 young people from across the country. We'll teach you about civil rights history, community organizing, and how to create change in your own neighborhoods. A boy in the front row stood up. Can we apply? Can kids from Chicago apply? Absolutely, Michael said. Applications open next week, and I'll be personally reviewing every single one. After the announcement, kids lined up to meet Michael, to shake his hand, to tell him their stories, to ask for autographs. But they also told him things he'd never forget. A girl from Inglewood, my teacher, saw the documentary. She apologized for how she treated some of the black students, said she didn't realize she was doing it. That's because of you. A boy from Austin, my dad started talking to me about racism, never did before, said he didn't know how, but your interview with Gayle King gave him the words. A teenager from Bronzeville, I was gonna drop out of school, felt like nobody cared if I succeeded or failed. But then I saw how you kept going even when that man was so mean to you. Made me think maybe I should keep going too. Story after story, life after life, each one a reminder of why this work mattered. As Michael was leaving, a woman approached. She was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. Mr. Jordan, I'm Amanda Parker. I'm a teacher at a school in Wilmington. Michael stopped. Wilmington, North Carolina. Yes, sir. I wanted to tell you something. After everything that happened, our school did a unit on racism and justice. We showed the documentary to our 8th graders, and one of my students, a white boy named Jake, wrote an essay that blew me away. She pulled out a folded paper from her purse. Can I read you part of it? Please, Michael said. Amanda unfolded the paper and read. Before I saw Michael Jordan's documentary, I thought racism was something from history books, something that happened in the 1960s and got fixed. But now I understand that racism is happening right now today to people I know, to classmates I sit next to, and I have a choice. I can ignore it and be part of the problem, or I can speak up and be part of the solution. Michael Jordan chose to speak up even though it was hard, even though it could have cost him everything. He showed me that doing the right thing matters more than being comfortable. So I'm choosing to speak up too, starting now, starting always. Amanda's voice cracked on the last words. That's how he ended it. Starting now, starting always. Your words, Mr. Jordan, and now they're his words too. Michael felt his throat tighten. Can I keep this? It's yours, Amanda said. Jake wanted you to have it. He said you changed his life. Michael carefully folded the essay and put it in his jacket pocket, right next to Marcus Jr.'s note that he still carried everywhere. That evening, Michael played one of the greatest games of his career. 42 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. The Bulls won Game 5 by 12 points, but Michael wasn't thinking about the score as he walked off the court. He was thinking about Jake's essay, about all those kids at the community center, about the change that was rippling outward in ways he couldn't even measure. In the locker room, reporters swarmed him. "Michael, incredible game. What was the key to your performance tonight?" Michael thought about how to answer. He could talk about strategy, about matchups, about execution, but that wasn't the truth. "I played tonight for every kid who's been told they don't belong," Michael said. "For every person who's been judged unfairly. For everyone who's still fighting for basic dignity and respect. That's my fuel now. That's what drives me." A reporter from ESPN asked, "Michael, it's been 2 months since Wilmington. Has the attention died down? Are you ready to just focus on basketball again?" Michael shook his head. "The attention might die down, but the work doesn't stop. This isn't a trend or a moment. This is a lifetime commitment. I'm Michael Jordan, the basketball player, yes, but I'm also Michael Jordan, the man who won't stay silent about injustice. Both of those things are true. Both of those things matter." Back in his apartment later that night, Michael found a package waiting outside his door. No return address, just his name written in elegant handwriting. Inside was a framed photograph. It showed the Laney High School gymnasium during the community gathering. All those people, black and white, young and old, coming together. The Wilmington commitment banner visible in the background. Dorothy Washington smiling through tears. Marcus Jr. looking up at Michael with pure admiration. Thomas Mitchell standing tall with his family. A note was attached. "Mr. Jordan, this moment happened because you had the courage to tell your truth. We're grateful. We're changed. We're committed. The work continues in Wilmington and beyond. With respect and love, the Wilmington community." Michael hung the photograph on his wall, right where he could see it every morning when he woke up. Over the next few weeks, more evidence of change arrived. A news article. Hotels nationwide implement new anti-discrimination policies. An email from Nike. The Just Us line exceeded sales projections by 200%. Customers are connecting with the message. A letter from a congressman. Your courage inspired me to introduce new legislation protecting people from discrimination in public accommodations. A video from Portland. Their version of the Wilmington commitment now had over 1,000 signatures, but the most meaningful feedback came from individuals. A mother in Tennessee. My son was being bullied for his race. After watching your documentary, he found the courage to report it. The bullying stopped. Thank you. A college student in California. I changed my major to social justice studies because of you. I want to spend my life fighting for equality. A retired teacher in Georgia. I taught for 30 years. I thought I treated all students equally. Your story made me realize I didn't. I'm volunteering now to help train new teachers, trying to prevent them from making my mistakes. One evening in early June, Michael received a phone call from David Brennan. "Mr. Jordan, I have something to tell you. The lobby is being nominated for an Emmy." Michael sat up straight. "What?" "Best Documentary. The Television Academy announced the nominations today. We're one of 5 finalists." "David, that's incredible. Congratulations." "It's not my accomplishment," David said. "It's yours. Your courage made the documentary possible. Your story deserves recognition." After they hung up, Michael sat quietly processing the news. An Emmy nomination. His story of discrimination being honored by the television industry. There was something poetic about that. His phone rang again. His mother. "Michael, I just heard about the Emmy nomination. "Baby, I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mama, but I didn't do anything." David made the documentary. "Don't be modest. You did everything. You spoke up when you could have stayed silent. You turned pain into purpose. You changed lives, Michael. That's worth more than any trophy." They talked for an hour about the foundation, about the kids at the community center, about how his father would have reacted to all of this. "Your daddy would be so proud," Dolores said, her voice thick with emotion. "He always said you were special, not because of basketball, but because of your heart, because of your character." He was right. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Too much was swirling in his mind. The playoffs, the foundation, the documentary, the kids, the change happening across the country. He got up and went to his desk, pulled out his notebook and started writing. Not about basketball, about legacy. What did he want to be remembered for? The championships were important. The scoring titles mattered. But increasingly, Michael realized that his greatest legacy might have nothing to do with the court. It might be the kids who found their voices because he found his. The communities that came together because he refused to let them stay divided. The conversations that happened because he insisted on truth. The policies that changed because he demanded accountability. The lives that improved because he wouldn't accept injustice. Michael wrote until his hand cramped. Pages and pages of thoughts, dreams, commitments. He was 30 years old, at the peak of his basketball career. But also at the beginning of something else. Something bigger. Something that would outlast any game, any season, any championship. A movement for change. A commitment to justice. A refusal to stay silent. As the sun rose over Chicago, Michael finally felt ready to rest. But before he went to bed, he pulled out Marcus Jr.'s note one more time. Read those words about strength and heart. Then he pulled out Jake's essay. Read those final words. Starting now, starting always. That was it. That was the answer to every question about how long he'd keep fighting, keep speaking up, keep using his platform. Starting now, starting always. Not just until the next controversy died down. Not just until it became inconvenient. Not just until people stopped paying attention. But always for the rest of his life. Because some things were more important than comfort or approval or even success. Things like dignity, justice, truth, equality. Things worth fighting for today and tomorrow and every day after that. Michael Jordan went to sleep that morning with peace in his heart. He'd found his purpose beyond basketball. He'd discovered his voice beyond the court. He'd committed to a fight that would never truly end but was always worth fighting. And he would keep that commitment. Starting now. Starting always. Michael Jordan's painful encounter with racism in a hotel lobby became more than just a moment of humiliation. It became a catalyst for change, a spark that ignited conversations across America, a reminder that courage isn't the absence of fear but the choice to speak up anyway. From one terrible night came scholarships for hundreds of students, training programs in countless businesses, communities coming together, children finding their voices. Lives forever changed, because one man refused to stay silent. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let us know your city and country. We love connecting with our listeners from all around the world. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or opened your eyes to something important, please hit that like button. It helps us reach more people who need to hear stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for many more interesting and inspiring stories just like this one. Stories of courage, resilience, and the human spirit overcoming adversity. Finally, please share this video with your friends and family. Spread kindness, spread awareness. Spread the message that speaking up matters, that change is possible, and that every voice has power. Because just like Michael Jordan learned, we all have a choice. We can stay silent or we can speak up. Starting now, starting always. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep standing tall.